Chapter 2995. Chu Li shook his head helplessly. These 4 protectors looked fierce, but it showed that King An's imperial residence was strong on the outside but weak on the inside. It was time to replace them with gentle protectors. King An's death caused everyone to panic. Fu Mengshan came to see you? Xiao Shi frowned. He's a busy man. Why would he come here? Nothing good will come out of it. Chu Li said, let's go take a look. Xiao Qi asked, do you want me to go with you? Chu Li shook his head and smiled. He won't fight me. You guys go ahead, I'll go take a look. The 2 ladies watched him leave. Xiao Shi sighed. Thank goodness you're back. If I was alone, I wouldn't be able to handle it. There are so many things to do. I can't wait for everyone to come and ask me. I don't dare to make any decisions. King An's death has crushed their spirit. They're all useless. It's inevitable. Xiao Qi nodded and continued with the next move. Chu Li came to the main hall. Fu Mengshan stood up and smiled. He closed fist saluted. Chief Chu, congratulations. Chu Li closed fist saluted with a smile and sat opposite him. He looked at Fu Mengshan. Fu Mengshan did not look well. His eyes were bloodshot. It was obvious that he did not sleep well last night. He looked haggard and worried. Commander, what happened? Chu Li asked as he put down his teacup. Fu Mengshan glanced at the maid outside the main hall. Chu Li waved his hand. The maid left and only the 2 of them were left in the main hall. Fu Mengshan sighed. I've been sent to the Imperial Mausoleum. I can accompany Commander Su now. Chu Li was stunned. How is that possible? I had a hunch when the Emperor sent Gu Yu here. Fu Mengshan shook his head and sighed. I had to give the place to Gu Yu. The Emperor will only be at ease if the secret Guardians Hall is in Gu Yu's hands. Chu Li frowned. Commander, you've worked hard for so many years. Even if you don't have any merits, you've still worked hard. How can you enter the Imperial Mausoleum? Sigh. Fu Mengshan shook his head and smiled bitterly. This is the best outcome. I know too much that I shouldn't have known. The Emperor is being merciful by not killing me. I knew this day would come, but I didn't expect it to happen so soon. Chu Li frowned. Is there no chance? No. Fu Mengshan shook his head and said, the Emperor is naturally paranoid. He will never allow anyone to be the commander of the secret Guardians Hall for too long, lest he becomes too powerful and loses control. Chu Li nodded slowly. Then what's the reason this time? Because of King An's death. Fu Mengshan sighed and said, we, the secret Guardians, didn't receive any news at all, and King An was killed right away. The Emperor was furious, and initially ordered the secret Guardians Hall to capture Du Feng within 10 days. In the end, we couldn't fulfill our wish, so the Emperor took me into custody. Chu Li sneered. Even an enlightened master like him can't capture him, let alone us. If you want to pin a crime on someone, you can always find a pretext. Fu Mengshan smiled bitterly and said, however, I'm already lucky to be alive. Going to the Imperial Mausoleum isn't something to be upset about. I've already thought it through. Chu Li frowned and remained silent. Fu Mengshan smiled and said, Young Chu, you just came back from that side. How is Commander Su? It wasn't good in the beginning. Chu Li shook his head and said, it's much better now. If you go there, Commander, you'll have someone to look after you. You'll feel more at ease. Ha! Fu Mengshan suddenly laughed. Looks like we'll be living together for the rest of our lives. Chu Li said, I'll arrange for the protectors of the High Duke's public house to send you there. There will be protectors from the Imperial House to send me there. Fu Mengshan shook his head. Protectors from the Imperial House? Chu Li frowned. Fu Mengshan sighed and said, I know what you're worried about, but there's nothing we can do about it. We can only leave it to fate. Chu Li slowly nodded, and his desire to become an enlightened master grew stronger. He thought for a while and said softly, Commander, did you tell Gu Yu about our plan? Fu Mengshan smiled. Do you think I'll tell him? Chu Li sighed. What a pity. My identity as a secret guardian has been taken away, and everything we had is now in vain. The Emperor doesn't know about this, right? He doesn't. Fu Mengshan shook his head. Only the three of us know about this. Now that we're all retiring to the Imperial Mausoleum, there's no need for you to do this anymore. Not to mention that you'll get nothing out of it. I'm afraid that you'll fall into the hands of your own people in the end. Zhao Dai was now a branch leader of the Holy Church of Light, and he had a bright future ahead of him. He was just afraid that he would be assassinated by the martial arts world of the Ji dynasty. It would be such a waste if he died in the hands of the Ji dynasty. Moreover, Fu Mengshan and Su Huanda had lost their positions, and they were lowly people. No one would listen to them, and no one would believe them. If Gu Yu did something bad on purpose, he would die a wrongful death. Chu Li said, "Now that my martial arts have been crippled, my side will be exposed too." What a pity! Fu Mengshan nodded. He had been paying attention to the news from the Li dynasty. The Li dynasty and the Qiu dynasty were in a fierce battle, and it was likely that they would mobilize Zhao Dai. Chu Li would not be able to rush over because he had lost his martial arts, and it would most likely cause suspicion. Once suspicion arose, even if it could be remedied, it would be difficult for him to be promoted to a higher position. Their plan would fail, and it was not worth wasting time. Chu Li said, "Now that my identity as a secret guardian has been taken away, I'm hated by the Emperor, and I can only guard King An's imperial residence. You still have to recover your martial arts as soon as possible." Fu Mengshan frowned. "I have to think of a way to get the reverse pill, but unfortunately, only Green Deer Cliff has it. We can't get in touch with them, and Green Deer Cliff rarely leaves the mountain. They're isolated from the world." Chu Li shook his head. "I can't count on them, I can only try to recover on my own." "You'll be fine once you get through this," Fu Mengshan said. Chu Li smiled. Bang 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 bang. Suddenly, there was a heavy pounding on the door. "Open the door! Open the door!" Chu Li frowned and scoffed. "They're fast. What's going on?" Fu Mengshan asked. Chu Li said, "The people from the Secret Guardians Hall are here to establish their authority." Gu Yu's ambitious. Fu Mengshan immediately understood what Gu Yu was trying to do, and shook his head. "He's too narrow-minded." Bang 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 bang. "Open the door! Open the door!" There was a heavy pounding on the door, and someone outside shouted loudly. Chu Li saw that the acupuncture points of the 4 protectors outside had been sealed. It was obvious that they did not expect these secret guardians to suddenly attack the imperial residence's protectors. They were caught off guard, and this made Chu Li feel even more helpless. 10 secret guardians hall surrounded Centurion Chen Donghai of Mei Yi Courtyard at the bottom of the stairs of the imperial residence, and 2 secret guardians were knocking on the door. Chen Donghai sneered as he stared at the imperial residence's door. "They're here to catch me." Chu Li smiled. "Because I beat up 2 secret guardians." Sigh. Fu Mengshan shook his head. "You should have held it in. Why do you have to lower yourself to their level?" Chu Li smiled. "I really can't hold it in anymore. Commander, you should hide for now." "There's no need." Fu Mengshan said, "I can't hide my arrival from them." "All right." Chu Li no longer forced it and raised his voice. "Elder?" Chief Zhu hurried over. "Head Chief? Get Zhu Tianhua and the others here. Later, let these people in and teach them a lesson," Chu Li said. Chapter 2996. Zhu Tianhua and the others soon appeared. Together with Xing Lide and the others, more than 10 grandmasters stood in front of the hall and looked at Chu Li. Chu Li waved his hand. "You don't have to worry about anything else. We'll fight when I say so." "Yes." Everyone answered loudly. Although Chu Li had lost his martial arts, his authority was deeply rooted in everyone's hearts. Now that King An was gone, Chu Li had become the pillar of the imperial residence. Everyone naturally obeyed his orders. Chief Zhu stepped forward and opened the door bolt. Suddenly, the door was knocked open. 2 secret guardians staggered in and were startled. They quickly took 2 steps back. Dressed in a blue tunic, Chen Donghai had a leisurely and carefree expression on his face. He waved his hand, indicating for the secret guardians not to come in for the time being. Then, he slowly stepped over the threshold and entered the courtyard. He chuckled and gave a fist salute. "Chief Chu, long time no see. Oh, Commander Fu is here too. I didn't expect to meet you here." Fu Mengshan frowned and glanced at him. "This is King An's imperial residence. What are you doing here?" "Hee, Commander Fu's question is ridiculous. Since we're here, we naturally have something to do." Chen Donghai smiled. "Commander Fu, you've been sent to the Imperial Mausoleum. Why are you still in Fairy's capital? Oh, could it be that you haven't given up and are here to ask Chief Chu for advice? Haha, are you going to cripple your martial arts and become a useless person?" Chu Li lightly said, "Looks like Centurion Chen has made a meteoric rise. Your mentality is different now. Congratulations." Chen Donghai fist saluted. "Not at all. We're going to offend you this time. Chief Chu, come with us." Chu Li replied, "What if I don't?" Hee, that's not up to you, Chief Chu." Chen Donghai smiled. "There's no one the secret guardians hall can't invite. I hope Chief Chu won't make a pointless struggle and hurt our relationship." Chu Li laughed. "Centurion Chen is getting more and more impressive. He's behaving atrociously in the imperial residence. Men, take him down." "Yes." Zhu Tianhua and the others rushed over. The other 12 secret guardians rushed in. It was a chaotic fight. Fu Mengshan shook his head and smiled bitterly. "Young Chu, you can't do this." Chu Li smiled confidently. "Should I just let them take me away? I don't even know if he can survive." "They won't dare to do anything to you," Fu Mengshan said. Chu Li shook his head. "Guyu doesn't have that many scruples. If I really end up in the Secret Guardians Hall's prison, even if I don't die, I'll still lose a layer of skin. It's better if I don't go in. Chief Zhu, go and greet the princess." "Yes." Chief Zhu ran out hurriedly. As Chen Donghai dealt with Zhu Tianhua's attacks, he shouted, "Chief Chu, how dare you oppose and attack our secret guardians? Who knows if you guys are real or fake secret guardians?" Chu Li said lazily, "Moreover, so what if you're a secret guardian? Is King An's imperial residence a place where secret guardians like you can enter as you please?" Xiao Shi rushed over and saw Chen Donghai and the others. Xiao Qi followed beside her. She frowned and asked, "What should we do with them?" "They're all crippled," Chu Li said lazily. Fu Mengshan was taken aback and hurriedly said, "Little Chu, you better think this through." Chu Li said, "Let's do it." "All right." Xiao Qi agreed. Her figure turned into a white shadow and shuttled through the crowd. Her sword flashed like lightning and cut through everyone's wrist. Then, she pierced their dantian and crippled their cultivation. Chen Donghai could not believe that Chu Li dared to act so recklessly. Among the secret guardians that he brought, there were 4 grandmasters and the rest were top-notch perfected innate masters who were just a step away from attaining the grandmaster's boundary. These were the elites of Mei Courtyard, and they were protected by secret guardians. Yet, they were no match for Xiao Qi. Chen Donghai never thought that such a day would come. Xiao Qi ignored Chen Donghai. Her sword flashed and with each strike, a secret guardian was crippled. In the blink of an eye, the secret guardians were lying on the ground. 12 secret guardians were lying on the ground with their martial arts crippled. Chu Li smiled. Zhu Tianhua saw that they were useless against Xiao Qi's martial arts, so he worked even harder and pressured Chen Donghai to the point where he could not breathe. Although Chen Donghai's martial arts were strong, he did not have much time to cultivate. Zhu Tianhua's talent was amazing and coupled with his hard work, he improved greatly. At this moment, Chen Donghai was on the verge of collapsing and could be defeated at any time. Chen Donghai raised his voice and shouted, "Chu Li, are you crazy? Do you know what you're doing?" Chu Li replied, I'm just crippling a few secret guardians. How is this crazy? You. Chen Donghai was in disbelief. The status of secret guardians in Secret Guardians Hall had always been aloof, and they were directly under the Emperor's command. Even if there were people who resisted, they would usually try to escape. No one was as bold as Chu Li to actually cripple 12 secret guardians. Zhu Tianhua, step down, Xiao Qi said. Zhu Tianhua quickly retreated. Xiao Qi appeared behind Chen Donghai in a flash, and her sword flashed. How dare you! Chen Donghai shouted, and his body suddenly expanded as he performed a secret skill. Xiao Qi's sword suddenly sped up and pierced Chen Donghai's dantian. There seemed to be a qi sound of air leaking. Chen Donghai seemed to have shrunk by one size. His face was pale as he stared at Chu Li in disbelief. He never thought that Chu Li would dare to do this and cripple him. According to his original expectations, Chu Li would be furious when he saw him but would eventually be taken away by him and admit defeat. He never thought that Chu Li would be so violent that he would directly attack the secret guardians and cripple their martial arts one by one. Even Chen Donghai was not spared. Could it be that Chu Li was going to kill them all to silence them? Chen Donghai felt a chill when he thought of this. Now that Chu Li was in a crazy state, it was not impossible for him to do such a thing. Chu Li approached him and smiled as he looked at him. Chen Donghai was terrified. Looking at Chu Li's smile, he felt that Chu Li was completely crazy. Chu Li sighed. I've been crippled of my martial arts, so I'm no longer a secret guardian. I wonder if all of you will still be secret guardians after becoming crippled? Centurion Chen, it looks like your position as a centurion has come to an end. Chu Li, you're really crazy. Do you know what you're doing? Chen Donghai still could not believe that Chu Li would dare to do such a thing. Chu Li smiled. Whether I'm crazy or not has nothing to do with you, Centurion Chen, right? You. Chen Donghai gritted his teeth and wanted to swallow Chu Li whole. At first, he thought that it would be a good show where he could finally step on Chu Li and vent his anger. He never thought that Chu Li would be so crazy that he actually ordered the protectors of the imperial residence to attack and cripple everyone. Back then, it was already shocking that Xiao Shi killed 2 secret guardians. Now, Chu Li was even crazier than Xiao Shi. There were 13 secret guardians, including him, a centurion. Did Chu Li not want to live anymore? Chu Li smiled. Someone, throw Centurion Chen and the others out of the residence. Chu Li, I'll wait to see what happens to you. Chen Donghai gritted his teeth and glared at him with hatred. Chu Li waved his hand and gestured for everyone to move. Zhu Tianhua and the others obeyed. Chapter 2997. Fu Mengshan smiled bitterly as he looked at Chu Li and then at Xiao Qi. He sighed and said, "Is this the famous third Miss Xiao?" Chu Li smiled. "Although my martial arts have been crippled, my wife's martial arts have not been crippled, so I have nothing to be afraid of." Xiao Qi gently nodded to hide her shyness. Fu Mengshan smiled bitterly and sighed repeatedly. Chu Li smiled. "Commander Fu, it's all right. Gu Yu won't forgive you." Fu Mengshan shook his head and smiled bitterly. He is a person who will seek revenge for the smallest grievance. Furthermore, ever since he became the deputy commander, he has been focusing on strengthening the authority of the secret guardians. He wants to restore his former prestige. Now that he has been humiliated by you, he will definitely think of ways to kill you. Chu Li scoffed. We'll have to see what he's capable of. If he brought people to surround the imperial residence, what would you do? Fu Mengshan frowned. Don't think that he won't do it. He's even more unscrupulous. Chu Li said, "We'll have to see whether the imperial residence's protectors or the secret guardians are stronger." You want to start a war with the secret guardians hall? Why not? You sure have guts. Fu Mengshan shook his head and said, "In order to make an example out of you, the emperor will not let you go. Although he will not do anything to the imperial residence of King and Young Chu, you will not have a good ending." I don't care, Chu Li said calmly. Fu Mengshan frowned. Actually, Gu Yu has gone too far in this matter. You're at fault too. Now that things have come to this, it's already out of hand. Chu Li smiled. Commander Fu, this is a troublesome place. You should leave first. Leave Fairy's capital as soon as possible so that you won't be implicated. All right. Fu Mengshan nodded slowly. He sighed helplessly and felt that he really did not understand the ways of the world. Chu Li's actions were so extreme and crazy, he really did not know how he was going to end up. In the end, he was afraid that he would end up being sent to prison. Chu Li sent Fu Mengshan off and turned around to return to the front of the main hall. He nodded at Zhu Tianhua and the others in satisfaction. Not bad, everyone will be rewarded. Go back to your duties. Yes. Everyone cupped their fists and left. They were a little excited. After teaching the secret guardians a good lesson, they could also calculate the resentment they had been suppressing during this period of time. Xiao Shi said, "Everyone is happy, but trouble has also come." Chu Li smiled. "It's all up to Lady Xiao now. I'll enter the imperial house immediately." Xiao Shi scoffed, "I'd like to see how arrogant these people can be." She turned around and returned to Tianshu courtyard to change into her morning attire. Then, she sat in a carriage and was escorted by Shao Qi to the imperial house to look for the empress. Chu Li sat in the Tianshu courtyard, deep in thought. The way to break the stalemate was easy. It was to let Xiao Shi enter the palace to see the empress. This was the easiest way to achieve this. The fickleness of the world and the viciousness of the human heart could be seen clearly at this moment. Gu Yu was unscrupulous. Once he saw that his martial arts had been crippled and that the emperor had stripped him of his position as a secret guardian, he immediately wanted to use his method to establish his authority. He wanted to take revenge on King An's imperial residence. The previous two secret guardians had intentionally provoked him to humiliate him and beat him up. Unfortunately, he had defeated them. If he had failed to defeat the two of them, he would have become the joke of the entire fairies' capital. Chu Li's name would have been completely ruined. From then on, Chu Li of the north and Du Feng of the south would no longer exist. After that, Chen Donghai and the other 13 secret guardians purely wanted to capture him and bring him back to the secret guardians' hall for trial. They also wanted to capture some protectors from King An's imperial residence as revenge for the death of the secret guardians. Zhu Tianhua. He raised his voice and shouted. Here. Zhu Tianhua's burly body appeared. Chu Li said, "How's the formation that I wanted you to practice?" "We're very familiar with it," Zhu Tianhua said in a low voice. Chu Li nodded. Zhu Tianhua said, "Head chief, are we going to go against the secret guardians' hall?" "I don't think so. But we must be prepared." Chu Li shook his head. If there were no accidents, Xiao Shi's plan to go to the imperial house to cause trouble with the empress would definitely be fulfilled. In the end, the emperor would reprimand the secret guardians' hall. No matter what, it was inappropriate for the secret guardians' hall to attack the imperial residence so soon after King An's death. Gu Yu only had his eyes on Chu Li and Xiao Shi. He did not care about the dead king and could not figure out the emperor's thoughts. If Xiao Shi did not get the upper hand this time, the emperor would be telling everyone that he had given up on the imperial residence of King An. After King An's death, as a father, he would not take care of King An's wife and children. How disappointing would that be? 2 hours later, Xiao Shi and Xiao Qi returned. Xiao Shi was all smiles while Xiao Qi looked relaxed. Chu Li smiled. "How was it?" "The emperor has reprimanded Gu Yu." Xiao Shi scoffed. Chu Li said, "Only a reprimand? If it was just a reprimand, it would be too light. On the contrary, it would show a kind of indulgence." "Gu Yu will come tomorrow to apologize," Xiao Shi said. Xiao Qi said, "Be careful of this person. He's really a despicable person." Chu Li nodded. The next morning, Gu Yu arrived as expected. The living room of the imperial residence of King An was so quiet that a pin drop could be heard. Gu Yu sat upright on the armchair. He had a strong aura and was holding a cup of tea. He looked at Chu Li as if he was the owner. Chief Chu, you have some complaints against me, don't you? Chu Li said faintly. Why do you say that, Commander? You must think that we shouldn't take away your position as a secret guardian right after your martial arts were crippled. Gu Yu said, Sigh, I didn't want to do that. Chu Li smiled faintly. When I entered the palace to see the Emperor, I asked him to resign from my position as a secret guardian. After all, my martial arts were crippled. It would be too much for me to occupy the position of a secret guardian. I thanked the Emperor for understanding and he agreed. The secret guardians were not people who could be added or removed at will. A secret guardian for a day was a secret guardian for life. Secret guardians could not be removed because they knew some information that outsiders were not supposed to know. Gu Yu pretended to be surprised, but he was secretly annoyed. Chu Li's words were too infuriating. It was obvious that he was mocking Gu Yu for not having the right to decide on his matters. It was directly decided by the Emperor. It was obvious that Chu Li did not respect him as a commander. Chu Li said, Commander, I believe you received the Emperor's decree? Yes. Gu Yu nodded. Chu Li said faintly, Commander Gu, you've been trying to find fault with the princess to make a name for the Secret Guardians Hall and raise the status of the Secret Guardians, right? It's not to raise the status of the Secret Guardians. It's to restore the status of the Secret Guardians. Gu Yu waved his hand and said in a low voice, The princess is a woman who is not inferior to men. We admire her, but for the Secret Guardians Hall, she has gone too far. Xiao Shi was the biggest headache for him now. She went to the Empress and used the Empress to pressure the Emperor to force him to apologize. All of his efforts were in vain, and he became a laughing stock. It would be difficult for him to raise his head in King An's imperial residence again. Chu Li said, It's not good for a secret guardian to be too domineering. Commander Gu, you should understand. Gu Yu sneered and lowered his head to drink his tea. Chapter 2998. Xiao Shi squinted her eyes at him. She hated Gu Yu to the core. He took advantage of Chu Li's loss of martial arts to humiliate and bully him. A person like him should be killed immediately. How could a few words of apology be enough to appease her hatred? Chu Li coughed. Princess, forget it. We can't really kill him. Xiao Shi scoffed. I'm not willing to let him go just like that. Chu Li pondered. How about we get him to compensate us with something? Sure. Xiao Shi replied. Chu Li asked, How about primary heaven pill from Green Deer Cliff? Not bad. Xiao Shi nodded. Chu Li turned to look at Gu Yu. Gu Yu shook his head. Forgive me for being powerless. Primary heaven pill is a secret medicine of Green Deer Cliff. It's rare and I heard that the required spirit medicine has been lost. Every pill used means one less. It's impossible to get the reversal pill without a good relationship. Then you should go back, Xiao Shi said. Gu Yu asked, Princess, why do you have to make things difficult for me? Have you forgotten how you made things difficult for us? Xiao Shi snapped. You're the only one who can make things difficult for us, but we can't make things difficult for you? Sigh. Gu Yu sighed and closed fist saluted. Princess, if I can get the primary heaven pill, I'll definitely send it to you, but I'm powerless. Please forgive me, Princess. Then cut the crap and scram. Xiao Shi waved her hand impatiently. Gu Yu's face turned pale and his hair stood on end. He had never been humiliated like this since he was young. It was intolerable. Xiao Shi took a sip of tea and did not look at him. Just as Gu Yu was about to explode, Shao Qi said, Forget it. Don't make things difficult for him. It seems like we really can't get it. Yes, thank you, Madam Chu. Gu Yu took a deep breath to suppress his anger and closed fist saluted. Shao Qi said, I hope you can control your subordinates and stop disturbing the peace of King An's imperial residence. Of course, Gu Yu quickly replied. You're so kind. Xiao Shi glared at Shao Qi. Chu Li chuckled. The three of them cooperated very well, as if they could read each other's minds. If he did not make things difficult for Gu Yu would bear a grudge against him. In the future, he would find an opportunity to do something behind the scenes. It would be very difficult for King An's imperial residents to find out. It would be very troublesome. With such an excessive request, Gu Yu was unable to fulfill it. Furthermore, Shao Qi and Shao Shi played the good cop and the bad cop, causing Gu Yu to almost give up on the idea. Gu Yu awkwardly left King An's imperial residence. In the evening, Chu Li was practicing his swordsmanship in the backyard. Ling Qiu, who was dressed in a light green outfit, walked in. She held a long sword in her hand and her face was sullen. Her beautiful face was tense, and she stood still next to Chu Li. It was obvious that she had something to say. Chu Li turned to look at her and stopped his sword. Ling Qiu said, Chief Director, tomorrow is the hunting ceremony. Chu Li nodded and smiled. Don't you love the hunting ceremony? Why are you unhappy? Although he killed King An, he did not feel guilty towards Ling Qiu. Instead, he was very calm. He had never associated Ling Qiu with King An deserved to die. Ling Qiu, Ling Qing, and the others did not have much feelings for King An. Although they were father and daughter, they rarely met. Even if they did, they would only exchange a few words as if they were strangers. I love the hunting ceremony, but they didn't invite us. Ling Qiu waved her long sword in dissatisfaction. Chu Li raised his eyebrows. They didn't invite you? Yes, they only invited us. Ling Qiu scoffed. They've gone too far. Chu Li frowned. Who's in charge this time? It seems like Granduncle Bao is busy, so Uncle King is in charge. Ling Qiu said. It must be that B***starred Ling Tao's doing. Chu Li pondered. Do we have to be invited? Yes. Ling Qiu nodded helplessly. Chu Li said. He thinks that it's not appropriate for the imperial residents to attend the hunting ceremony since His Royal Highness has just passed away, right? They won't be so kind. They must think that the imperial residence has declined and that we're not worthy of them. Ling Qiu waved her long sword and said hatefully. Chu Li shook his head and laughed. You're thinking too much. That must be it. They've gone too far. Ling Qiu scoffed. Chu Li said, It's fine if we don't attend this time. We'll just attend the next time. If we do, people will talk behind our backs. If they were to attend the hunting ceremony this time, they would definitely be greeted with sympathetic gazes. There might even be people who would take the opportunity to cause trouble. I want Mother and the princess to relax, Ling Qiu said. My mother has been depressed. She'll be fine after a while. Is Princess Shui very close to His Royal Highness? Chu Li asked. It's not that they're close. She just feels guilty and short of breath without a man at home. Ling Qiu pouted. Actually, I can live without a man. What's the big deal? Mother is so weak. Chu Li said, Princess Shui's thinking is right. Without His Royal Highness, many things are inconvenient. Let's forget about this hunting ceremony. We'll talk about it next time. All right, Ling Qiu said reluctantly. Chu Li shook his head. Where's Miss Qing? She's practicing her swordsmanship, Ling Qiu said. She's preparing to teach Ling Tao a lesson the next time we meet. All right, teach him a lesson, Chu Li smiled. He's been beaten up so many times. Hasn't he learned his lesson? He's an asshole. He'll definitely take revenge when he gets the chance. Ling Qiu scoffed. This time, he must have seen that father is gone. That's why he didn't greet us. Chu Li pondered. In the end, he shook his head. You'll know the next time we meet. He felt that it was unlikely. Ling Tao was now fawning over Ling Qiu. It was not a romantic relationship. It was more like a friendship forged through fighting. However, he was too lazy to care about these trivial matters. Even if Leng Tao was lazy and took the opportunity to bully the imperial residents of Qing'an, it was just a child's play. It was not worth fighting. After talking with Leng Qiu for a while, he returned to Tianshu courtyard. He found Princess Shui and Princess Song there. They had returned to their parents' home a while ago and did not stay in the imperial residence. After returning, they came to Xiao Shi's place to talk. Once Qing'an was gone, they could only listen to Xiao Shi. Xiao Shi had the final say in the imperial residence. After all, the title was fundamental. Moreover, they were guilty and short of breath. Xiao Shi was full of confidence. In addition to Xiao Shi's identity, they felt safe staying in Tianshu courtyard. Seeing him enter, the two princesses nodded to greet him. Princess Shui smiled sweetly. Head Chief, you came at the right time. We were just discussing. Chu Li smiled. Princess Shui, what are you discussing? I think we should bring the young prince back to the imperial residence, Princess Shui said. Chu Li was stunned. Suan. Yes. Princess Shui said, now that the imperial residence doesn't have a male master, it's being bullied everywhere. If Suan returns, even if he's just a child, it'll be justifiable. Suan is currently in isolated cultivation at the Titanium Temple, Chu Li pondered. He's at a crucial point in his cultivation. He can't return now. Consort Shui said, you can cultivate anywhere you want. We have a cultivation courtyard in the imperial residence too. Princess Song nodded. I heard that the cultivation courtyard in the imperial residence can increase the speed of cultivation. Why don't you go in and cultivate, head chief? Chu Li shook his head and smiled. That's the Royal Highness courtyard. How can I overstep my boundaries? The Royal Highness isn't here anymore. There's nothing to do anyway, Princess Song said. Chu Li shook his head. If he did not cultivate the concentration talisman, he would naturally covet the cultivation courtyard. However, he had the concentration talisman, so the cultivation courtyard was fine. After all, he was only the head chief, not the Royal Highness. Once he went in, the Emperor might take the opportunity to attack him. Princess Shui rolled her eyes at him. You're too old-fashioned. Does that mean the young prince can't return? Chu Li frowned and shook his head. Not now. Let's ask him after he's in isolated cultivation. The Titanium Temple won't let him go now. Chapter 2999. Sirs, Chu Li doesn't belong to us secret guardians anymore. Moreover, he was just stripped of his position by the Emperor. I'm afraid he's still resentful and might not agree to help. We can only ask the Emperor for a decree. It's useless to beg him. Chen Donghai said with a fist salute. Oh, that Chu Li. The chubby elder nodded. The one who was sent to the Imperial Mausoleum? He came back a while ago? That's him. Chen Donghai hurriedly said, although he's arrogant, he's truly capable. If we want to solve this case in 3 days, we'll need him to do it himself. Other than him, I'm afraid no one else in Fairy's capital can do it. Is this young man that good? The chubby elder smiled and shook his head. You can't solve the case without him? It's not luck that he managed to become a centurion from a normal secret guardian in just half a year. Chen Donghai tried his best to put in a good word for Chu Li so that he could convince the two to help him. He could ask for a decree from the Emperor so that he could pull Chu Li over. He did everything he could to drag Chu Li into this mess. Firstly, he harbored resentment and wanted Chu Li to suffer along with him. Secondly, he had a faint hope that if anyone could solve this case within 3 days, it would definitely be Chu Li. No one else had that kind of ability. After all, the Emperor had issued a decree to solve the case in 3 days. If they could not do it, everyone would be punished. Someone might be sent to guard the Imperial Mausoleum, or the commander might lose the Emperor's favor. The Emperor's favor was crucial for the commanders of Secret Guardians Hall. If they lost the Emperor's favor, their position would be unstable. Their honor and disgrace depended on the commander. If the commander lost power, they would be finished too. Just like Chu Li, he was forced to leave Secret Guardians Hall because of Fu Mengshan and Su Huanda's loss of power. The two elders looked at Gu Yu. Gu Yu nodded helplessly. Chu Li is indeed a powerful person. He was originally a centurion, but the emperor took away his identity as a secret guardian. Since he took away the secret guardian title, can he help you solve the case? The thin elder asked. His eyes were bright as if he could see through Gu Yu and Chen Donghai. He knew the secret guardians hall's nature. They were like wolves when it came to taking credit. How could they allow others to do it? He would not be able to see any merit in this kind of thing, and it would only bring him trouble instead. If he could avoid it, he would try his best to avoid it. Recommending Chu Li might not be a good idea. If Chu Li failed, the two of them would be implicated instead. Gu Yu replied, since it's His Majesty's order, he has to obey it even if he's resentful. After all, he's a subject. Oh! The thin old man muttered to himself. The chubby old man smiled and said, all right, I'm just mentioning it. Let's talk about it in front of the emperor and see what this Chu Li is really capable of. The thin old man glared at him. The chubby old man said, if this case can't be solved, based on His Majesty's intentions, I guess all of you will be finished. Xiao Gu, you won't be able to get any benefits either. I'm afraid you won't be able to keep your position. Gu Yu's expression changed. Old Zhou, the thin elder said in a deep voice. The chubby old man chuckled. It's rare for little Gu to be here. I should at least give little Gu a word of advice at a crucial time. The thin elder said, don't listen to his nonsense. It's not reliable, but it won't be a light punishment. You should try your best to solve the case first. Yes, Gu Yu said in a deep voice. Both of them were the emperor's personal protectors, so old Zhou would not speak nonsense. It seemed like his position in the emperor's heart was in danger and needed to be reversed. He must invite Chu Li back. Ever since he entered the secret guardians hall, he had not made any contributions and had disappointed the emperor. He had also heard about Chu Li's prowess from others. Even Chen Donghai, who hated Chu Li, was amazed by Chu Li's abilities and felt ashamed of himself. If not for that, Mayer Courtyard would not have been so difficult to deal with. Chu Li was practicing his swordsmanship in the courtyard. He was starting to see results when he integrated the less ultimate sword into the 7 forms of godly sword. The less ultimate sword was exceptionally mysterious. The more he comprehended it, the more exquisite it was and the more he admired the ultimate temple. The next time he had the chance, he must visit the ultimate temple and personally experience their less ultimate sword. He might even learn the ultimate sword technique. The ultimate sword technique was a sword formation. As long as he learned it, he could form a formation with his fellow disciples. He had seen it before and it was indeed exquisite beyond imagination. The Fu dynasty's martial arts and the Ji dynasty's martial arts were not the same, but it was indeed more exquisite and powerful. The imperial edict has arrived. Chu Li received the edict. Suddenly, a loud voice came from outside. Chu Li frowned. He was now deeply disgusted by the imperial edict. He and the emperor hated each other. Once the imperial edict was out, nothing good would come out of it. Shao Qi appeared and saw that he was standing still. Aren't you going to receive the edict? Chu Li sighed. Just say that I'm not here. Do you really want to do that? Shao Qi asked. Chu Li said, it's best to hide. All right. Shao Qi nodded. I'll go inform them. Go hide. Chu Li nodded. Shao Qi left his courtyard and went to the imperial residence's main gate. 2 elders in black stood at the bottom of the steps of the imperial residence. They looked solemn and had a dignified bearing. They were Zhou and Hu who had delivered the edict to Gu Yu earlier. Where's Chu Li? Thin Elder asked in a deep voice. When he saw the imperial residence's main gate open and a fairy-like woman came out, but it was not Chu Li, he frowned and asked. Shao Qi fist saluted and said coldly, "My husband is not in the imperial residence. May I know the emperor's edict?" "Not in?" Thin Elder asked. "How can he not be in the imperial residence? My husband has gone to another place to cultivate in isolation." Shao Qi said, "Forgive him for not being able to receive the edict." The chubby elder asked, "Can he rush back in time?" Shao Qi shook her head. "He can't rush back in such a short time. Even if he gets the news, it'll take 5 to 6 days. Why did he go to such a faraway place to cultivate in isolation?" Thin Elder frowned. Shao Qi said, "Fairy's capital is full of trifling matters and he can't calm down. He can only cultivate in peace and recover his cultivation level as soon as possible when he's far away." 5 to 6 days. The chubby elder shook his head. "It's too late." Shao Qi said, "May I know the emperor's edict?" "He wants Chu Li to investigate a case. My husband is no longer a secret guardian of the Secret Guardians Hall, so he has no right to investigate. Moreover, he has lost his martial arts, so he won't be able to investigate even if he wants to. Please report this to the emperor," Shao Qi said. "Hee, if that's the case, we can only report it as it is." The chubby elder laughed. The two glanced at King An's imperial residence and vaguely felt that Chu Li was in the imperial residence, but he was avoiding the edict. This little guy was really bold, but he couldn't expose this matter himself. The two returned to the imperial house and went to Chongwen Hall to reply to the edict. There was only an old servant in Chongwen Hall who was holding a horsetail whisk and standing in a corner. The Ji dynasty's emperor, Ling Wufeng, sat on the dragon throne. He was dressed in a bright yellow robe and had his hands on the table. He asked, "Isn't this young man coming out to receive the edict?" Thin Elder answered, "He said that he went to cultivate in isolation outside of Fairy's capital." "Humph!" Ling Wufeng scoffed. "He has a good excuse. Your Majesty, is he really avoiding us in the imperial residence?" The chubby elder asked. "He can't be that bold, can he?" Chapter 3000. The chief tactfully retreated. Chu Li and Xiao Shi talked for a while until the sun was setting. He appeared at Ascending Dragon Mountain again in a flash, wanting to see what happened to Liang Yinge and the other two. Without a formation master, it was almost impossible to break through. Although Liang Yinge was powerful, he would be seriously injured if he broke through such a formation. Chu Li could take advantage of the situation, which was much better than the previous life and death battle. He was more confident too. He scanned the surroundings as soon as he appeared and frowned. He did not see Liang Yinge and the others, only leaving behind a mess. It was not only left by the two gray-robed elders, but also by Liang Yinge. Chu Li frowned. Could it be that they broke out of the formation? Then he had to sense it carefully. Liang Yinge was at his weakest now. They might have gone to the Great Cold Palace if they disappeared. He moved quickly and circled around Liang Yinge's original position. He suddenly stopped after a quarter of an hour as he found Liang Yinge. Liang Yinge was sitting cross-legged under an old pine tree. There was no one else around him. The two gray-robed elders were gone. Chu Li found it strange, but he did not care too much. Liang Yinge's face was as pale as paper. His handsome face was calm, but his body was unusually weak, as if he would be blown away by the wind at any time. Chu Li was not in a hurry to go up. He just stared and did not move. Liang Yinge's body seemed to be exceptionally bright. There was a faint light flowing around his body. Normal people would not notice it, but Chu Li's eyes were sharp. He saw it clearly. He sighed in relief. It seemed that Liang Yinge's injury was real and not fake. When he thought of this, he observed the surroundings and looked for the best position. He wanted to use the power of the formation to hit the target. After observing for a while, he suddenly flashed and appeared 20 meters above. He shot 2 blades at Liang Yinge at the same time. The saber light flashed like lightning. Liang Yinga realized that something was wrong. He shot out and wanted to avoid the sky. Tsk tisk. At this moment 2 blades flashed. He seemed to have sent his legs to be shot. Chu Li shot his legs first to prevent him from putting on his treasured clothing. Liang Yinga glared at Chu Li with a gloomy face. Chu Li appeared and smiled at him. Pavilion leader Liang, how have you been? Despicable. Liang Yinga said coldly, You want to kill me? Come. Chu Li smiled as he shook his head. It's a pity that your treasured clothing can't save a life. 2 formation masters have died, so the Zheng dynasty must have suffered a great loss. Sigh, I'm really sorry. Who asked the saint to order me? As a disciple of the Holy Church of Light, I can't disobey her orders. If you want to blame someone, you should blame the saint. He spouted nonsense in an attempt to distract Liang Yinga. The saintess was the one who could attract Liang Yinga's attention the most. Chi. 2 rays of light shot towards Liang Yinga at the same time, one at his throat and the other at his lower abdomen. He then waved his hand again, and the other 2 flying knives shot to the right. Liang Yinga's complexion was extremely poor, but his movements were like a ghost. He instantly dodged 2 flying knives to the right and collided with the 2 that came after him. The manifestation of nature restoration had already found out where he was hiding. At this moment, he couldn't dodge even if he wanted to. Both of his palms were placed in front of his body. Chi. The 2 blades pierced through his palms and shot into the air above his shoulders. Chu Li shook his head and sighed as he threw another flying knife. Liang Yinga's perseverance was extraordinary. He used his palms to forcefully change the direction of the flying knife. It was not only because of his skill, but also because he was fearless in the face of pain. When the flying knives pierced through his palms, the bones of his palms collided with the flying knives at the right time, causing the high-speed flying knives to change direction. It seemed easy, but he had to be ruthless to himself first. This made Chu Li even more wary. His murderous intent grew stronger, so he threw one knife after another. In one breath, he threw all the flying knives he had. There were a total of 24 knives, and 12 of them hit Liang Yinga. Liang Yinga looked like a bloody gourd. His entire body was stained with blood. This time, his face was even paler. It was not fake. Chu Li went forward and met him head-on, forcing him to use his secret skill. If he still could not break the formation after using his secret skill, he would lose completely. After a few consecutive palm energies, Chu Li's palms were dyed red by Liang Yinga and were dripping with blood. The palm energy of the 9 kills palm was pure and een. Wave after wave, it had a trace of the Earth Matrix and reincarnation scripture. This time, Chu Li restrained him and was not afraid of the 9 kills palm energy. Through the palm energies, he realized that Liang Yinga was indeed very weak. He suddenly had a guess. It was very likely that Liang Yinga had used his secret skill. When he thought of this, he no longer had any scruples and used his secret skill. Suddenly, his body grew taller, his speed and strength multiplied, and he instantly knocked Liang Yinga down. Then, he slapped his dantian and crippled his cultivation. Everything happened in a flash. The stalemate lasted for a long time, but the turning point was completed in an instant. After that, the difference was like heaven and earth. Ha ha! Chu Li looked up and laughed. Liang Yinga's face was gloomy. He glared at him with resentment but did not say anything. Chu Li activated the omniscient mirror and stared at Liang Yinga. Tell me, Pavilion Leader Liang. You like our saint, right? That's right. Liang Yinga scoffed. Chu Li read his mind. He did have feelings for Sun Mingyue, but this answer was to cover it up. It was as if he said something wrong on purpose to mislead Chu Li. Chu Li was overjoyed. He could finally see into Liang Yinga's mind. He wondered how many secrets he could uncover. When he thought of this, he was inexplicably excited. He could not wait to ask, Pavilion Leader Liang, who's your teacher? You won't know even if I tell you, Liang Yinga said coldly. He did not keep silent. He knew that he would only suffer. Zhao Dai was not a soft-hearted person. Chu Li said, "Zhu Liang?" Liang Yinge was shocked. Chu Li smiled. "There's no such thing as an airtight wall. No one pops out from a crack in a rock." "Is Zhu Liang dead or alive?" Chu Li asked. "Of course he's alive. He's an enlightened master." Liang Yinge scoffed. "You know Honorable Master Zhu. That's impressive. Zhu Liang is a disciple of Green Deer Cliff. He betrayed the sect and stole the spirit crane technique, right?" Chu Li looked away, but he asked slowly as if he was not paying attention. Liang Yinge frowned at him. "Who are you? It's impossible for a disciple of the Holy Church of Light to know about this. This was not something an ordinary person would know. It was a secret among secrets. Moreover, Green Deer Cliff was aloof from worldly affairs. They were very strict when it came to recruiting disciples. The only traitor was Zhu Liang. Back then, the stars were shining brightly. Although Zhu Liang was an enlightened master, very few people knew about his origins. If he did not say anything, Green Deer Cliff would not say anything either. Who would know? In this era, it was even rarer for people to know about this secret. He did not expect a disciple of the Holy Church of Light to mention this. Chu Li said, "I heard about it occasionally and was very curious. I didn't expect Green Deer Cliff to have such a secret. Zhu Liang didn't return the spirit crane technique to Green Deer Cliff, right? If he didn't have a grudge, he wouldn't have betrayed the sect. Why would he return the spirit crane technique? What's the use of you knowing?" Liang Yinge said faintly. "The spirit crane technique isn't something that anyone can cultivate. No matter how powerful the Holy Church of Light is, you won't be able to obtain the spirit crane technique." "You've cultivated the spirit crane technique too?" Chu Li scoffed. "No." Liang Yinge shook his head. Chu Li had to use his inner energy to perform the soul-searching palm, but Liang Yinge could use this inner energy to activate his secret skill and burn his blood essence. Even if his martial arts were crippled, he could still turn his blood essence into power. He had infinite strength and was as fast as lightning. This was the essence borrowing technique. The origin borrowing art burned one's essence blood, which was actually one's lifespan. Chu Li could see from his mind that for every 15 minutes he used it, his lifespan would decrease by 10 years. Chu Li felt that this technique was profound. Although the price was a little high, at a critical moment, compared to dying completely, losing 10 years of lifespan was nothing. Even 20, 30, 50, or even 100 years was nothing compared to dying immediately. Liang Yinge frowned and looked at Chu Li. "You have the eye of insight?" He was extremely smart, and Chu Li's words seemed to hit his heart as if he could see what he was thinking. He immediately thought of the eye of insight or an antique study similar to it. Although he did not know the eye of insight, he could see through other people's thoughts with a glance through thoroughly meticulous observation and understanding of people's hearts. Therefore, he could control the mysterious pavilion at a young age as if it was his own arm, and his prestige was unprecedented. Chu Li was shocked, but he smiled. "The eye of insight? Haha, interesting. You really have a whimsical imagination. If I had the eye of insight, would I still be a branch leader? I would have become a priest long ago." "That's true." Liang Yinge nodded lightly. Zhao Dai's cultivation level was strong enough that he was only slightly inferior to him. This was already very impressive. Their statuses were worlds apart, but their martial arts skills were not too far apart. This could only mean that Zhao Dai was not successful. After the previous incident, Liang Yinge had investigated Zhao Dai in detail and knew that Zhao Dai was troubled by his personality. Once he had the eye of insight, his personality would not be like that. Whether it was intentional or not, he would definitely not be as impulsive as Liang Yinge. Chu Li asked, "What are you working with the saint for?" "You're a smart person. You can guess it, right?" Liang Yinge asked. Chu Li shook his head. Liang Yinge said, "It's nothing much. It's just to deal with the Fu dynasty." "You're quite bold," Chu Li said. Liang Yinge said coldly, "Who's willing to be the Fu dynasty's puppet and be manipulated by them?" Chu Li asked, "What hope do you have?" Liang Yinge said, "The Fu dynasty's strength is beyond imagination." Sigh. Chu Li shook his head. "If it's that easy, the Fu dynasty would have been overthrown long ago. However, your courage is commendable. I admire you. Kill me if you want. It's not an injustice to die in the hands of Sun Mingyue." Liang Yinge scoffed. Chu Li smiled. "All right, I'll send you on your way then." He raised his hand and was about to shoot a blade, but he suddenly felt danger. He disappeared in a flash, and a palm energy silently hit his original position. A deep pit instantly appeared. Following that, a white figure flashed and landed in front of Liang Yinge. Then, it turned into a white light and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Although Chu Li was shrewd, he could not help but be furious. Just as he was about to succeed, someone interfered and saved Liang Yinge. It was unforgivable. In order to cripple Liang Yinge and kill him, Chu Li had spent a lot of effort. It was only with the right timing, geographical, and human conditions that he was able to achieve what he had today. Just as he was about to achieve his goal, he actually failed. Liang Yinge smelled a faint fragrance and turned to look. He smiled. Masters Jr. It was a beautiful middle-aged woman who was tugging at his sleeve as if she was riding the wind. At first glance, she looked like a young girl. Her skin was smooth and exquisite, snow-white and sparkling like a piece of white jade. However, there were faint wrinkles at the corners of her eyes. Time had left its mark on her body. "Masters Jr., why are you here?" Liang Yinge smiled. The beautiful middle-aged woman was dressed in snow-white clothes. She looked like a fairy who did not belong to the mortal world. Her temperament was somewhat similar to Shao Qi's. "I predicted that you'll be in great danger, so I could only rush over," the middle-aged woman said plainly. "Since when did you suffer such a loss?" Although she predicted it herself and saw it with her own eyes, she still found it unbelievable. Liang Yinge was a peerless genius who appeared once every few hundred years. No one in the Zheng nation could compare to him in terms of aptitude. Ever since he left the mountain, he had always let others suffer losses. Chapter 3002. Sigh, I've failed miserably this time. This fella used a formation to trap me. If it wasn't for the formation, I would have killed him many times over. I don't think you've gained any advantage from him. The last time he escorted the Li dynasty's 12th prince to the Jing dynasty, I chased him into a sorry state. Did he gain any advantage from being chased so pathetically? This fella is cunning. He actually used a master from the Fu dynasty and joined forces with them to escape unscathed. Liang Yinge scoffed resentfully. He was furious when he thought about it. This fellow was so slippery that he could never catch him. If he was not careful, he would be devoured instead. He really deserved to die. That's right. Masters Jr., whose side are you on? I see that you're becoming more arrogant and will suffer more in the future. I might not be able to save you next time. With Masters Jr. around, I don't have to worry. What will you do when I'm gone? How is that possible? Liang Yinge laughed. Masters Jr. has profound martial arts and doesn't look old at all. I wonder how long you can live. You're always fooling people with that mouth of yours. The beautiful middle-aged woman shook her head and laughed. Liang Yinge said, Masters Jr., I'm speaking from the bottom of my heart. I'm not flattering you. All right. The beautiful middle-aged woman replied, I'll be going to the Ji dynasty soon. It might be a long time before I return. The Ji dynasty. Liang Yinge frowned. Why are you going to the Ji dynasty, Masters Jr.? To go back and have a look, the beautiful middle-aged woman replied plainly. Liang Yinge hesitated before asking, Masters Jr., is the Grandmaster still alive? No. The beautiful middle-aged woman frowned. Why are you suddenly asking about this? I just suddenly thought of it. Masters Junior, you never told me when the Grand Master passed away, Liang Yinga said. He passed away more than 1,000 years ago and went to the Outland. The beautiful middle-aged woman said. The Crescent 9 kills was passed down by Master before he passed away. He said that the spiritual energy would decrease in the future, so he couldn't rely on spiritual energy to become an enlightened master. He needed to find another way, so he created the Crescent 9 kills. Then why did my master suffer chi deviation? He secretly cultivated the spirit crane technique, the beautiful middle-aged lady said lightly. I can't cultivate the spirit crane technique? If I cultivate the Crescent 9 kills trial first, I won't be able to cultivate the spirit crane technique. If I cultivate the spirit crane technique, I can cultivate the Crescent 9 kills trial. The beautiful middle-aged lady Ding Ruijie said faintly, when Master was still alive, he had always resented Green Deer Cliff for having such a high threshold. In the end, he created this Crescent 9 kills trial. However, the threshold of the Crescent 9 kills trial was even higher, so Master was enlightened and understood Green Deer Cliff's difficulties. He asked my senior brother, who is your master, to return the spirit crane technique to Green Deer Cliff. If that's the case. Liang Yinga frowned and said, I heard that Grandmaster was born in Green Deer Cliff and betrayed Green Deer Cliff. Why did he return the spirit crane technique? It would have been better to just let him stay. In any case, Green Deer Cliff will never forgive Grandmaster. Only by having a clear conscience can one successfully ascend to the realm beyond heaven. Ding Ruijie said lightly, moreover, I don't want our bloodline to become enemies with Green Deer Cliff. I'm afraid that Green Deer Cliff will take revenge. Liang Yinga said, Is Green Deer Cliff that powerful? Green Deer Cliff is much more powerful than you think. Ding Ruijie said, whether it's the Li dynasty or the Ji dynasty, the 4 major sects are not to be underestimated. Yes. Liang Yinga nodded. He now had a deep understanding of this sentence. Who would have thought that a branch leader in a remote place of the Holy Church of Light would have such a cultivation level? Liang Yinga asked again, Has Master returned the secret manual to Green Deer Cliff? How can he disobey Master's order? Naturally, he has returned it. Ding Ruijie said, however, with his personality, he won't be willing to return it just like that. Liang Yinga thought about it and shook his head. He did not know what Master would do. Ding Ruijie said, he made an agreement with Green Deer Cliff. The next generation's successor will only be able to cultivate the last 3 stages of the spirit crane technique if his martial arts is stronger than yours. Master is really bad. Liang Yinga shook his head and laughed. His aptitude could be said to be unparalleled in the world. Even if the Green Deer Cliff disciples were powerful, they would not be stronger than him. Ding Ruijie said, Green Deer Cliff is a big sect, so it's inevitable that they care about their reputation, especially in front of us. If the current generation's successor isn't confident, he won't come to challenge us. Liang Yinga smiled. Masters Junior, they're here to challenge us. Do you want me to loosen my grip? It's up to you. Ding Ruijie glanced at him. She had personally taught this master's nephew, so she naturally understood his personality. He only revealed 70% of his abilities and was good at disguising himself. The Green Deer Cliff disciples were confident, but they might not win. Liang Yinga smiled and nodded. In his late years, Masters Senior had accepted a Masters Junior into the sect. 20 years ago, the Masters Senior had accepted Liang Yinga on behalf of his master who had died from chi deviation. In short, it had become a tradition for the Masters Junior to accept disciples on behalf of others. The Masters Junior looked middle-aged, but he was already a few hundred years old. As for whether he was 300, 200, or even 400 years old, he did not know. Ding Ruijie suddenly turned to look. He's catching up? Liang Yinga smiled. He could not wait for Chu Li to catch up. With Ding Ruijie's light body technique, the two of them had long left the ascending Dragon Mountain and were no longer shrouded by the formation. Ding Ruijie nodded lightly and said, "There's no door to hell, but he still wants to come." "Masters Junior," Liang Yinge hurriedly said. "Impossible," Ding Ruijie said. Liang Yinge said, "If there's no formation, I'm still confident that I can kill him." Ding Ruijie glanced at him. "If you want to kill him, then kill him. Isn't it the same if you kill him or I kill him?" "Stop." "Yes." Liang Yinge knew that it was useless for him to say anything more. Masters Junior would not listen to him at all. She deliberately slowed down and said, "I underestimated his light body technique. If Chu Li did not chase after them, she would immediately leave with Liang Yinge. If Chu Li chased after them, he would be courting death, and she would not let him go." Her deduction technique was ethereal connection, so she naturally had her own rules. Chu Li's figure could be seen in the distance. His green robe fluttered in the wind, and his body technique was somewhat free and unrestrained. His speed was extremely fast, and he caught up to Ding Ruijie in a short while. Chu Li's heart was unusually depressed, and he was extremely angry at Ding Ruijie. Even if she was a beauty, and a beauty who could retain her youthful appearance, he still wanted to attack her. Liang Yinge laughed. "Zhao Dai, you're quite smart. Why are you so muddle-headed and courting death?" Chu Li said coldly, "You're a dignified man, but you need a woman to save you. How dare you laugh?" "This is my Masters Junior," Liang Yinge said with a smile. "What's so embarrassing about being saved by Masters Junior? You're lucky this time, but it's a pity that I won't have the chance to take revenge today." Chu Li understood what he meant. He was saying that he would definitely die today. He looked at Ding Ruijie and sneered. "Her?" As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly tried to dodge, but he still could not escape. Bang! With a muffled sound, he felt that he was hit in the chest by an invisible force. Everything in front of him was rapidly retreating, and at this moment there was a severe pain in his chest. A strange force drilled into his body. It was extremely cold, but it suddenly turned into extremely hot. Then, without waiting for Chu Li's inner energy to counter it, it turned into extremely cold and extremely cold again. Chu Li hurriedly urged the Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture to counter it. It was cold and it was hot. He continuously converted it into his own inner energy and prevented his vital organs from being injured. Chapter 3003. Ding Ruijie was nowhere to be seen. Liang Yinge stood where he was and smiled. Masters Junior was personally pursuing him, so how could Zhao Dai have a chance to escape? Master's divine movement skill was best at borrowing the power of heaven and earth and even crossing space. Chu Li felt a murderous intent following him closely like a shadow. He could not dodge it at all. With the divine light body, his speed was maximized. He only needed to use God's limbs. The middle-aged beauty's light body technique was terrifying, but it was not the light body technique, but the fact that she had concealed her murderous intent to avoid his senses. His soul was many times stronger than a normal person's, and his intuition was also sharper. He could sense it with a slight thought and avoid it in advance. It was especially important when he encountered a master who was stronger than him. However, it did not work this time. The middle-aged beauty had acted before she even thought about it. It was against common sense that she had a special method to conceal her murderous intent. When he thought about how she could pass through the formation unimpeded and save Liang Yinge, he knew that she was proficient in formations and could probably use formations to achieve her goal. When he killed Liang Yinge, he used a formation to conceal himself from Liang Yinge's senses. What goes around comes around. This time, it was his turn to be deceived. The woman no longer concealed herself. It was obvious that she was determined to kill him. Her light body technique was like the imminent skyline. With her understanding of formations and space, she might be even better than the imminent skyline. The murderous intent was as dense as a sword. It was as if the tip of a sword was pressed against his back and could stab him at any time. Chu Li felt a chill run down his spine. He had the urge to use God's limbs, but his rationality made him suppress this urge. Once he used God's limbs, his identity would be suspicious. Divine power was not something that anyone could use, and it was also not something that could be comprehended by oneself. For martial artists, only when they reached the heavenly God realm would they be able to use divine power. Without reaching the heavenly God realm, they would not be able to use divine power. Ding Ruijie's speed was faster than his divine light body. Tsk, 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 tsk. Small pits appeared around Chu Li. They were more powerful than the hailstones. Chu Li twisted his body and did not slow down at all. He managed to avoid every attack from the invisible sword energy by a hair's breadth. He complained in his heart. This woman was really powerful. The omniscient mirror could clearly see the woman's cold eyes. She waved both her hands as if she was playing a pipa. Streaks of sword energy shot out from her fingers. The omniscient mirror could clearly see the existence of the sword aura. It was extremely solid, as if the 10 fingers had extended countless times, and the finger technique was aimed directly at him. Streaks of sword energy pierced towards Chu Li as if they were real. Moreover, they were sharp and precise. Chu Li's 10 fingers coordinated with each other and weaved a sword net, leaving no room for Chu Li to escape. When the sword net was formed, Chu Li suddenly sped up and rushed out of it. Ding Ruijie frowned. No wonder he could make Xiao Gu suffer so much. He did have some skill. Ding Ruijie snorted. Her sword chi suddenly changed and became much thicker. This way, it was not as solid and pure as before, but the area of effect was greatly increased. It covered almost every inch of the place, making it unavoidable. Before Chu Li could react, he was already hit by the sword energy. Bang, 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 bang! His body moved like lightning. His fists continuously punched out divine light fist after divine light fist, breaking through the sword chi's shroud, and dashed forward. In the blink of an eye, they were dozens of miles away. Chu Li shouted, "Aren't you afraid that Liang Yinge will be captured?" Ding Ruijie did not deny it. If Liang Yinge was in danger, she would immediately sense it and return immediately. Chu Li shouted, "You're Liang Yinge's master's junior. Tell me your name." "Shut up." Ding Ruijie snorted. She suddenly spat out a white gas, which shrank in the air and condensed into an invisible thin needle. It silently shot towards Chu Li's back. This invisible thin needle merged with the void and concealed its killing intent. It approached silently, making it impossible for grandmasters to guard against it. It could be said to be unusually vicious. Chu Li's omniscient mirror saw it clearly, and his heart was filled with killing intent. He sneered, "Vicious woman, you're courting death." He took a hit from the sword energy and shot 2 flying blades at the invisible needle. Ding! The flying blades seemed to have hit a metal stone, showing how powerful this invisible needle was. It was invisible and unintentional, but it was so pure and terrifying. How many people could escape from this needle? If not for the omniscient mirror, he would have been hit by the needle. Then, he was hit again and shot out 2 more blades. Ding Ruijie frowned. She did not manage to capture it. The 2 slender fingers of her left hand bent, manipulating the 2 streaks of sword chi to meet the flying daggers. Ding-ding sounds were heard, and the flying blades fell to the ground. Chu Li also frowned. This woman's reaction was too fast, beyond imagination. The 2 were separated by 20 meters. At such a distance, the light blade's speed was beyond one's reaction. It was too late to dodge the blade, let alone hit it. Moreover, when she hit the flying blades, the remaining 8 sword energies were still attacking him. This was not just multitasking, but multitasking. Each finger was unusually agile and pointed in different directions. Chu Li did not want to be entangled with this dangerous woman anymore, so he shouted, Liang Yinge is seriously injured, I'm afraid he's dying now. Shut up! Ding Ruijie shouted. Her fingers waved the sword energies even faster, making Chu Li embarrassed. Chu Li suddenly shrank his body and hid behind a boulder by the side of the road. TSS, 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 TSS. The sword energies shot the boulder into pieces. Her expression suddenly changed, and she quickly chased after him. She could no longer sense Chu Li's presence, so he might have escaped from her sight. TSS. A stream of light shot toward them. The two stepped into the range of ascending Dragon Mountain, and were enveloped by the formation. Chu Li's omniscient mirror was most sensitive to this, so he wanted to borrow the power of the formation. Ding, sounds were heard, and the flying blade hit her chest. At such a short distance, no matter how fast her body movement technique was, she could not react in time to avoid the blade. Chu Li turned around and left. As soon as he heard the sound, he knew that Ding Ruijie had treasured armor and even a heart protection mirror. The light blade could not hurt her at all. He sighed to himself. If it was a treasured blade, it might work this time. Unfortunately, when he was shooting at Liang Yinge, he had used up the treasured blades and did not have time to retrieve them. This time, he could not use them. Was this God's will? Ding Ruijie suddenly stopped and lowered her head to look at her chest. There was a small hole in her chest, revealing the bluish-white inner garment inside, the treasured armor, and the heart protection mirror. If it was not for them this time, she would have been hit by the blade. She was shocked and extremely angry. She wanted to kill Chu Li 100 times. However, the more the murderous intent surged, the angrier she became. She wanted to leave, but when she was angry, she couldn't mobilize her troops. When her emotions were intense, she couldn't use force at will. It would be fine if he was far below her, but she had elevated Chu Li's position. He was an enemy who could threaten her life, so she had to be careful. This place was protected by a formation. Although she was proficient in formations, she knew that if they fought, that fellow might not be able to protect her even with the help of the formation, the treasured armor and the heart protection mirror. I'll keep your head today, Ding Ruijie shouted, then turned around and disappeared like a flash of light. Chu Li let out a long sigh of relief, but he did not dare to be careless. Once again, he passed through the formation. He wanted to completely get rid of Ding Ruijie and not use God's limbs in front of her. He thought about it and finally flashed a few times. He appeared at the place where he fought with Liang Yinge and kept the 9 flying blades. Then, he appeared at the peak of a mountain and buried the blades under a rock so that he could retrieve them later. He stood at the peak and sensed Liang Yinge's location. His heart was surging with murderous intent. Chapter 3005. You. Liang Yinge's expression changed, and he leaped up. Chinese? W. Chu Li did not wait for him to speak. A stream of light flew out of his sleeve and pierced through his temple without any obstruction. Ugh! Liang Yinge's eyes widened and his gaze slowly dimmed. Finally, he fell to the ground. Bang! An explosion was heard from afar. Chu Li glanced at it. The formation method of jade talismans had its weaknesses. It was far better to use the terrain of the mountains to set up a formation. After all, those mountains and terrains had accumulated spiritual energy for tens of thousands of years, which was incomparable to jade talismans. Moreover, his level of jade talisman refinement was ordinary, and he had barely touched the door of a treasure weapon. Although he knew that the jade talisman could only trap Ding Ruijie for a while, he did not expect her to break through it so quickly. Her cultivation level was beyond what he had seen. Their line had this habit. However, after Liang Yinge's death, this line would probably be broken. His thoughts were lightning fast, and he was far more agile than ordinary people. At this moment, he still had the time to sigh. Throughout history, many sects and martial arts were broken like this. Life and death were the foundation. Ding Ruijie's face was as pale as paper. When she appeared in front of Liang Yinge in a flash, Chu Li had already left, and only Liang Yinge's corpse was left on the grass. The surrounding air seemed to freeze, and the world lost its color. Xiao Gu. Ding Ruijie hurried forward and saw Liang Yinge's injury. Her voice trembled, and her face was as cold as steel. A string of tears fell from her bright eyes. Although he was a nephew, he was no different from a son. The pain of losing a son was enough to make one go crazy. Her eyes were like ice and lightning. She glanced coldly in the direction of the Ji dynasty, then carried Liang Yinge and fluttered away. The sun set in the Divine Light Basilica. The glacier at the top of the Great Light Peak reflected the afterglow like a golden color. The Divine Light Basilica was unusually bright. Chu Li stood in the basilica with a heavy expression. Sun Mingyue sat elegantly and dignified behind the table. She wore a snow-white dress and a white veil. She was staring at him with her bright eyes. "You're saying that you really killed Liang Yinge?" "Yes." "How did you kill him?" "I killed him. I got into big trouble." Chu Li scoffed. "Liang Yinge has a female master's aunt. I'm no match for her." Ding Ruijie. Sun Mingyue calmed down and nodded gently. "A very powerful old monster. You met her? You're really lucky to be able to come back." He was unlucky to have encountered Ding Ruijie, but he was extremely lucky to have survived. Ding Ruijie's cultivation level was profound, and no matter how strong Zhao De was, he was no match for her. Chu Li sighed. "There's a formation on the ascending Dragon Mountain, and I used it to cripple Liang Yinge. When I was about to kill him, Ding Ruijie saved him. However, I set up a formation to trap her for a moment, and took the opportunity to kill Liang Yinge." Sun Mingyue looked at him in surprise. "Can you really set up a formation?" Chu Li looked at her arrogantly. He did not bother to explain. Sun Mingyue knew that he had learned about formations in the Phoenix Goddess brothel. Although the disciples of Tian Luo sect had learned about formations, there were only a few who could use them. Although Zhao De was smart and could learn a little, he could not compare to Ding Ruijie. Ding Ruijie wasn't just a formation master, she was also a seer who could peer into the heavens. Even though she could only peer into the surface of the heavens, it was still extremely terrifying. Sun Mingyue frowned. She got up and left the armchair. She paced back and forth in front of the table with her hands behind her back. After pacing back and forth a few times, she sighed softly. She knew how powerful Liang Yinge was. At first, she thought that she would make Chu Li suffer a little, or even destroy his arrogance, and train him to change his unscrupulous and unruly character. She never thought that Chu Li would really kill Liang Yinge. Chu Li said, "Ding Ruijie will definitely take revenge." "Yes." Sun Mingyue rubbed her brows and shook her head. "Now that things have come to this, you can only return to the Great Light Peak." "Am I supposed to hide in the Great Light Peak for the rest of my life?" "Just cultivate in isolation. You'll be able to go out whenever you want if your martial arts is stronger than hers. She has hundreds of years of accumulation. How can I catch up to her in a day?" Chu Li was unconcerned. "I'm not worried about myself. I'm worried about the people around me, including Senior Sister Du." As he spoke, he looked at Sun Mingyue with a faint smile. Sun Mingyue was annoyed by his expression. She asked nonchalantly, "Do you like doing?" "Senior Sister Du can't become Senior Sisterly, so you should just give up, Saint." Chu Li scoffed. Sun Mingyue knew that her thoughts were seen through. She said angrily, "You think too highly of yourself. Do you really think that doing will like you?" Chu Li smiled. "Of course not." Sun Mingyue's red lips moved slightly but stopped. She scoffed. "All right, doing won't look for you anymore." Pointing it out was a rejection. Since it was useless to force it, it was better to just give up. Chu Li smiled. "You're a sentimental person," Sun Mingyue said. "Are you afraid that Du Ying will take revenge on you?" "Yes." Chu Li nodded. Sun Mingyue saw that he was so confident. It was hard to tell if he was telling the truth. She disliked the feeling of not being in control the most. It took too much effort to see clearly, not to mention that she could not see clearly. And those people from Gale Branch. Chu Li frowned. They can't keep doing this. Is there any other way? Sun Mingyue nodded. She was very satisfied with Chu Li's worried look. His heart was not cold, and he was still kind and beautiful. If he only cared about himself and did not care about the lives of his subordinates, she would have killed him long ago. It was because of his bad nature that she could tolerate his troubles and still wanted to use him. Otherwise, she would have thrown him away like trash. Chu Li ignored her praise and asked, "Is there any other way?" "I'll send a master from the church over," Sun Mingyue said. Chu Li frowned. Sun Mingyue could tell that he did not believe in the church's masters. She scoffed. "There are many masters in the church. There are many who are more powerful than you." "More powerful than the priest and the others?" Sun Mingyue scoffed. The former priest, and even the priest before him are all here." Chu Li smiled. Sun Mingyue asked, "Are you going to stay at Great Light Peak or Gale Branch?" "Since there are masters from the church, I'll stay at Gale Branch first," Chu Li said. "That's good too," Sun Mingyue said. "You haven't experienced how powerful Ding Ruijie is. Don't get killed by her." Chu Li smiled. "Ding Ruijie's divine foresight? She knows divination," Sun Mingyue said. "She can steal heavenly secrets. She can divine my location?" Chu Li scoffed. Sun Mingyue said, "She can divine things that others don't know." Chu Li frowned and remained silent. He was really afraid that his true identity would be divined out. If Zhao Dai's identity was exposed, she would not be the only one hunting him down. The Holy Church of Light would also be hunting him down. Furthermore, it would be worse if she could divine his other identity. "Are you afraid?" Sun Mingyue smiled faintly. Chu Li said, "Divination is from the Fu Dynasty's Divination Pavilion, right? It's a secret skill unique to the Divination Pavilion." Sun Mingyue nodded. "Her identity is not simple." Chu Li frowned. "If she's that powerful, won't she be invincible?" "There's no such thing as invincible martial arts," Sun Mingyue said. "All right, you should go back. Hurry up and cultivate in isolation. We won't need you this year." Chu Li looked at her discontentedly. He stopped talking halfway. Sun Mingyue said, "No matter what, martial arts is the foundation." Chu Li knew that he could not get any more information out of her. He stared at her with dissatisfaction. Chapter 3006. Chu Li hated it when she kept him in suspense. English. It was impossible for him to pry Sun Mingyue's mouth open, so he could only think of a way himself. She was right about one thing: there was no such thing as invincible martial arts. Between heaven and earth, if there was yin, there must be yang. In terms of knowledge, among all the people he knew, Xiao Shi was the most knowledgeable. When he returned to Tianshu Courtyard, Xiao Shi was talking to Shao Qi with a smile on her face. When she saw him, she only glanced at him. Chu Li came to their stone table and sat down. Shao Qi asked, "Is everything all right over there?" Her cold gaze was filled with concern as she sensed the heaviness in Chu Li's heart. Chu Li smiled and nodded. "Madam, do you understand heavenly prophecy?" Shao Qi said, "It's the Fu Dynasty's Destiny Pavilion's unique, secret skill. It's very famous, but due to the harsh requirements to cultivate it, only a few people in the world know how to use it." Chu Li nodded slowly. Shao Qi continued, "Using this skill will damage one's lifespan, and one will be punished by the heavens. Therefore, even if one successfully cultivates this skill, he won't easily use it, so you don't have to worry." Xiao Shi pursed her red lips and scoffed. "Did you offend someone who cultivates the art of divination? The disciples of the Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries usually don't involve themselves with the secular world. How did you offend them?" "I didn't expect her to be from the Pavilion of Secrets either. It's too late now." He briefly explained the situation to her. It was just a few words, but it made Xiao Shi's jade-like face turn serious. She said hatefully, "This Sun Mingyue is really up to no good. She wants to get rid of you." Xiao Qi frowned. "Has your identity been exposed?" She had always been worried about this. Once Chu Li was exposed, he would not have a good life anymore. The power of the Holy Church of Light was not to be trifled with. Once they went berserk, they would be terrifying. Chu Li smiled. "You don't have to go through so much trouble to get rid of me. Oh right, is there any way to counter the divination art?" No matter how powerful he was still far from Sun Mingyue. The stronger one's cultivation was, the deeper one's perception would be. Sun Mingyue's power was usually hidden, like an iceberg hidden in the water. Occasionally, he would see the tip of the iceberg. Xiao Qi said, "You don't have to worry. The Mahavairokkana's immobility scripture can evade the heavenly oracle spell." Chu Li heaved a long sigh of relief. Thank God. His heart was finally at ease. Xiao Shi chuckled. "But don't get too full of yourself. It's fine for you to cultivate your divination art." Prince Kong sighed and shook his head. "I'm really embarrassed to say it." "The matter of the Secret Guardians Hall?" Chu Li said. "Lu Yurong has become the commander of the Secret Guardians Hall. She wants to use the Royal Highness to establish her authority?" Prince Kong smiled bitterly. "Lu Yurong is indeed a formidable girl. The Crown Prince is lucky. What sore spot did Wang Yi catch?" Prince Kong heaved a sigh and said, "One of my side concubines has some problems with her identity." Chu Li stared at him. Prince Kong said, "She was originally a disciple of the Holy Church of Light." Chu Li could not help but laugh. "Your Royal Highness, please don't joke around." "Do I look like I'm joking?" Prince Kong snapped. "How can I be in the mood to joke at a time like this? I'm so worried." Chu Li touched his chin and could not help but laugh. "Even the Royal Highness would do such a foolish thing? When I was young." Prince Kong shook his head and said, "But when love comes, everything will come to an end. You can't leave just because of her identity. Tell me, young Chu, you were originally from the Secret Guardians Hall. Do you have any ideas?" Chu Li sighed and shook his head in silence. He never thought that Prince Kong would make such a huge mistake. As a prince of a country, he had access to many military affairs and secret. It was inevitable that he would reveal one or two things when he spoke to the side concubines. If the side concubines revealed it to the Holy Church of Light, the losses would be immeasurable and many people would lose their lives because of it. It was not that Prince Kong did not know about it, but he knew his mistake and committed it. Chu Li could not say anything about it. "Does the Emperor know about it?" Chu Li asked. Prince Kong said, "I've told my brother." "That's good. Since the Emperor knows about it, I'll let the Emperor tell Lu Yurong about it." Chu Li sighed in relief. "But it's not convenient for my brother to tell her. That girl Lu Yurong knew about this and purposely made things difficult for me." Prince Kong shook his head. Chu Li nodded thoughtfully. "It'll be troublesome if the Emperor doesn't tell her. Based on my understanding of Lu Yurong, she'll definitely make a big fuss and then..." The consequences were obvious. If Chu Li and Prince Kong were not friends, he would also agree with Lu Yurong's actions. As a prince, how could he marry a disciple of the Holy Church of Light as a concubine? It was like playing with fire, forcing everyone in the Ji dynasty to play with it. The imperial concubine left the Holy Church of Light a long time ago. Prince Kong said. Chu Li asked, "Can you be sure, Your Royal Highness?" "I guarantee it with my life," Prince Kong said. Chu Li pondered for a while. "Can I see the imperial concubine?" "Young Chu, you still don't believe me," Prince Kong said impatiently. Chu Li said, "Your Royal Highness, you're involved in it and can't make a clear judgment. I'm an outsider." All right. Prince Kong hesitated for a while before agreeing. He knew that Chu Li was agreeing to help. He raised his voice and shouted, "Someone, invite Princess Ji over." After the time it took to drink a cup of tea, a graceful woman dressed in a green robe gracefully walked over. She looked like she was middle-aged and much younger than Prince Kong. She was beautiful and had bright eyes. She still had the temperament of a young girl. Chu Li sighed. It seemed that she had been living a happy life all these years. Prince Kong had protected her well and rarely experienced the hardships and vicissitudes of life. Princess, this is young Chu. Prince Kong waved his hand and chuckled. He's very familiar with the disciples of the Holy Church. I've heard of God's Eye Chu Li. He's the enemy of the Holy Church. G-Man chuckled. Chu Li gave a fist salute and bowed. Prince Kong said, "Don't scare young Chu." Chu Li smiled and shook his head. Is the princess still a disciple of the Holy Church of Light? Of course. If I'm not a disciple of the Holy Church, then I'm a traitor. The Holy Church will definitely kill traitors. There's no escape. It seems that the Holy Church of Light wants you to hide for a long time. Chu Li smiled. That's right. G-Man said, you seem to know a lot. Chu Li shook his head. You flatter me. Are you trying to kill me? G-Man smiled slyly. Chapter 3007. Chu Li smiled. Why would I want to kill you, princess? Because I'm a disciple of the Holy Church of Light. You've stumped me, princess. Chu Li shook his head and laughed. If she was really a disciple of the Holy Church of Light, she would be punished for leaking information. However, through the observation of the omniscient mirror, G-Man was now a traitor of the Holy Church of Light. She had no intention of working for the Holy Church of Light. Of course, she was willing to help as long as it did not harm Prince Kong. Since ancient times, women had always been extroverted. She did not care about the Holy Church of Light anymore since she had a husband. He shook his head. Princess, you have to be careful. How can the people from the Holy Church of Light not know what you're thinking? But why have you been holding it in? G-Man's face darkened and she sighed. She knew the Holy Church of Light very well. They would never let go of any traitor. Since ancient times, no traitor of the Holy Church of Light had survived. There were many masters in the Holy Church of Light. Once they went all out to kill someone, there would be no hope of survival. It would be useless even if they hid in the Fu dynasty. Someone did it and died. Ordinary people only see the appearance of the Holy Church of Light. It's secretive and mysterious. Only the true disciples know about the peaks of the Holy Church of Light. Each peak has a different gathering, Prince Kong said. G-Man smiled. Alright, let's go to the Verdant Cloud brothel. Of course not. Prince Kong quickly waved his hand. G-Man chuckled. Look at how scared you are. Why are you feeling guilty? Young Chu, was the food to your liking? It looks, smells, and tastes great. Chu Li praised. I cooked it myself. It's good that you like it. G-Man smiled and left. Chu Li turned to look at Prince Kong. Prince Kong was staring at her graceful back. Chu Li shook his head and smiled bitterly. No wonder Prince Kong was so obsessed with her. He even dared to do something like this. G-Man was really charming. She was charming and her temperament was ever-changing. After such a long time, love often turned into familial love. Prince Kong should have become numb to her beauty. However, looking at him, it was obvious that he had experienced it. No wonder he was so desperate. Chu Li said, actually, there's another way. Say it. Prince Kong turned. Chu Li said, Your Royal Highness, it's actually not a bad idea to go to the Imperial Mausoleum to die together. Feign death and live in seclusion. Prince Kong knitted his brows and thought for a moment. He sighed and said, I am afraid Imperial Brother will not agree. I'm afraid that the Emperor is eager for Prince to be like this. Chu Li smiled and said, It's just because of our brotherhood and the criticism outside that I can't say it out loud. I'm just waiting for the Royal Highness to say it personally. In that case, Prince Kong frowned and thought for a moment. If there's really no other way, I can only do this. but I really feel aggrieved to be pushed away by a little girl. Chu Li said, "That's true. Little Chu, I know you two have a good relationship," Prince Kong said with a faint smile. When Chu Li left the Imperial Mausoleum, Lu Yurong escorted him all the way. Chu Li smiled bitterly. She's afraid that if I die, she won't be able to find a worthy opponent. The two of us are not as romantic as Royal Highness thinks. It's already good enough that Prince Kong is part of the imperial family. Could it be that this is the Emperor's idea? Lu Yurong said, Prince Kong was the one who bumped into me. I was checking the internal security of the imperial family, especially the disciples of the Holy Church of Light. I didn't expect Princess Kong to bump into me. How can I just let this go? Chu Li nodded. If you let this go, you'll lose your dignity as the commander of the Secret Guardians Hall. Lu Yurong scoffed. This is really shocking. It scared me. She knew that Chu Li could understand. If he was in her shoes, he would have done the same. Chapter 3008. Lu Yurong glanced at him but did not refute. She knew she could not hide it from him. Chu Li laughed and said, "You're quite bold. Who would have thought I'd find something so shocking?" Lu Yurong scoffed with a helpless look on her face. She was a newly appointed official, and she wanted to rectify the foul atmosphere in the Secret Guardians Hall. Gu Yu had only been in office for a short while, but he had caused a lot of trouble in the Secret Guardians Hall. She was too lazy to make it up little by little. She wanted to frighten them in one go. Investigating and killing the disciples of the Holy Church of Light was the most effective. The disciples of the Holy Church of Light in Fairy's capital were people who risked their lives to meet death. They all treated death as a shortcut to ascend to the Outland. Once these fellows were discovered, they would perish together and it would be difficult for them to survive. Even if they managed to capture them, they would quickly escape with their lives and easily ascend to the Great Light Realm. The secret guardians of the Secret Guardians Hall trembled in fear when faced with such people. They had to be alert or they would die if they were not careful. The Secret Guardians Hall became very efficient when they were nervous. They quickly found information about Prince Kang's consort. She could not suppress Chen Donghai's report in public. Otherwise, the Secret Guardians would look down on her. She would not be able to command them and it would take more time and effort. After thinking for a while, she decided to continue investigating and not give up halfway. Of course, she understood that Chen Donghai wanted to go against her. Hence, she assigned him a task and sent him far away. She would deal with him when she had time. Chu Li said, "It's not a good idea to use the consort as bait. She's a disciple of the Holy Church of Light." Lu Yurong said coldly, "She's not a consort." Chu Li shook his head. "She didn't do anything to harm the Ji dynasty. Her existence is harmful to the Ji dynasty." Lu Yurong sneered. "Prince Kong asked you for help. Are you going to plead for him? The Emperor knows about this too." Chu Li said, "But he's too embarrassed to point it out." "I won't stop." Lu Yurong shook her head. "If she really didn't harm the Ji dynasty, then it's fine. Otherwise, the Emperor can deal with her." Chu Li said, "Seems like you know what to investigate." He speculated maliciously that the Emperor might also be curious about whether Princess Kong had done anything harmful to the Great Ji all these years, so he did not say anything. The Emperor was always suspicious and alone. No matter who became the Emperor, it was the same. Lu Yurong said, "If Princess Kong did not do it, I will not accuse her." Chu Li gave a fist salute and smiled. "Thank you very much." Whether it was done or not was often decided by Lu Yurong's words. If it was not found out, it could be said that it was suspicious. If it was found out, it could be said that it was wrong. In short, Lu Yurong's words determined Princess Kang's situation. Of course, even if Princess Kong did something harmful to the Great Ji dynasty, the Emperor would probably not kill her. At most, Prince Kong would be sent to supervise the construction of the Imperial Mausoleum. If Lu Yurong wanted to establish her authority, she could just say that Princess Kong was suspicious. The Emperor would send Prince Kong and the others to the Imperial Mausoleum, and Lu Yurong's authority would be established. From then on, who in Luoyang would dare to be presumptuous with her? So he owed Lu Yurong another favor. Lu Yurong asked, would she really dare to betray the Holy Church of Light? The Holy Church of Light might have forgotten about her. Chu Li shook his head. The Holy Church of Light would never forgive a traitor. Lu Yurong said, so it's hard for her to survive. If she investigated, the Holy Church of Light would definitely know. Even if they did not care about her, they would remember now. The best way is to play dead. Lu Yurong said, I'll get someone to kill her. Chu Li smiled. Both of them had the same idea. Playing dead would solve the problem once and for all. Unfortunately, Prince Kong and his wife had not made up their mind. Chu Li said, you're going to send someone to the Holy Church of Light as an undercover, right? Lu Yurong chuckled and did not say anything. Chu Li said, maybe you don't have a predecessor, so you're not clear about some things. Don't go undercover in the Holy Church of Light. Lu Yurong frowned. They're only allowed to come to the Great Ji Dynasty. We can't go there? You can go to other places, even Jade Capital, but don't go to the Holy Church of Light. The Secret Guardians Hall has sent many secret guardians to the Holy Church of Light over the years, but none of them succeeded. The saint of the Holy Church of Light, Sun Mingyue, has the ability to see through people's hearts. Going there would be suicide. Chu Li frowned. That powerful? Lu Yurong was deep in thought. No wonder. She did not find any information about the Holy Church of Light in the Secret Guardians Hall's dossier. Chu Li said, don't tell me you've already sent them out? I'm choosing. Lu Yurong said, I thought the people from May Air Courtyard would be suitable. Chu Li smiled. Lu Yurong said with a smile, Chu Li, your May Air Courtyard is really powerful. No wonder Gu Yu was so mad. May Air Courtyard has the most grandmasters, as well as tracking experts and investigation experts. The best of them are all in May Air Courtyard, but they only listen to you. Chu Li said, I'll tell them. If this goes on, I'll be ruthless. Lu Yurong said. Chu Li nodded. Don't forget our promise. Of course. Lu Yurong said, Chu Li, I realize that you're very familiar with the Holy Church of Light. Chu Li frowned and stared at her. What are you trying to say? Before Gu Yu died, he said that you're in cahoots with the Holy Church of Light. Lu Yurong's eyes were clear as water as she glanced at him. Chu Li frowned. Why are you bringing this up again? Gu Yu may be incompetent and muddle-headed, but it might not be a lie. Lu Yurong shook her head. He knows that slandering you is useless. He must have found evidence. Chu Li laughed. You're so imaginative. Lu Yurong was unmoved. Her watery eyes were still scanning his face, trying to see every change in his expression. Unfortunately, Chu Li's expression was calm and his smile was not forced. Lu Yurong smiled. I think you know the Holy Church of Light very well. There's only one explanation. Chu Li smiled without saying anything. He was not anxious at all. Lu Yurong had been testing him. Seeing how calm he was, she was more certain of her guess. She said slowly, Chu Li, did you sneak into the Holy Church of Light? Chu Li laughed. You're imagining things again. The saint of the Holy Church of Light can see through people's hearts. No one in the Ji dynasty knows about this. The Secret Guardians Hall didn't have this information. How did you know? Lu Yurong smiled. I guessed, Chu Li said. You don't say things that you're not sure about. Lu Yurong smiled and shook her head. Her eyes were still fixed on him. She did not give up on testing him. She smiled. So you're very sure. The only possibility is that you've seen it yourself. There's no shadow. I'm very busy. I don't have time to waste on them. You should think about serious matters. Don't bother me all the time. Chu Li scoffed. Lu Yurong shook her head. Time. Others might not be able to do it, but you have divine powers. You can travel thousands of miles in an instant. Chu Li rubbed his forehead. Your way of thinking is really… I don't know what to say. You admit it, right? Lu Yurong smiled. She enjoyed this feeling very much. Finally, she could hold her head high and suppress him. Chu Li said, there's no such thing. Why would I admit it? I'll tell the people in May Air Courtyard. Think of an idea about Consort Kong faking her death. I'll tell them. Chapter 3009. Chu Li's expression changed slightly and he nodded slowly. This was another favor. Even though he knew she was doing it on purpose, and that he would have to repay her in the future, he was still grateful. He closed fist, saluted, and disappeared from the gazebo. Lu Yurong sat down thoughtfully and looked at the sparkling lake under the moonlight. Her mind worked like lightning. She replayed the scenes of her interaction with Chu Li in front of her. She analyzed the changes in his expression, the words he said, and the changes in his tone, trying to figure out if she was right. If there was anyone who could sneak into the Holy Church of Light, it would be him. Only he had the ability. However, he was a centurion. He should not have done such a dangerous thing. Sneaking into the Holy Church of Light was dangerous. How could a centurion like him take such a risk? In a flash, Chu Li appeared in a forest outside the Valley of Snow Lunar Pavilion. There were not many masters within a 10-mile radius. Without the feeling of an impending storm, the people who were eyeing them left and Snow Lunar Pavilion returned to peace. In the depths of the forest, 8 miles away from Chu Li, he saw a group of men in black curled up on a tree without moving. It was as if they were one with the tree. Coupled with the clothes they wore, it was hard to tell from the outside. Chu Li knew they were masters from the Holy Church of Light at a glance. There were 6 of them and their cultivation level far surpassed Li Hanyan. They seemed to have waited for more than a day. This Lu Yurong. Thinking of this, he suddenly disappeared again and appeared in Li Hanyan's house. He did not care about the boundaries between men and women. It was already night and Snow Lunar Valley was brightly lit. The waterside pavilion he was in was dark. There was only a faint light reflected from the outside. It was unusually weak, as if it was 2 different worlds. When he appeared, he saw Li Hanyan sitting on the bed to heal her injuries. Chu Li frowned. Li Hanyan opened her eyes. The originally dark waterside pavilion was suddenly lit up and the room was electrified. "Big Brother Chu," she said softly. Her voice was hoarse. She was heavily injured. "What happened?" Chu Li asked. He went forward and grabbed her cold wrist. He probed with his inner energy and observed with the omniscient mirror. He saw his inner energy flowing in her body and frowned. "I'm fine," Li Hanyan quickly said. Chu Li scoffed. He leaped onto the bed and sat behind her. Then, he slapped her back a few times. Pfft! Li Hanyan threw herself forward, her head out of the bed, and she spat out a mouthful of blood. The darkness could not obstruct Chu Li's gaze. He saw that the corner of her snow-white lips had been dyed dark red. It was a sight that stirred him to the core. Li Hanyan's breathing became smoother all of a sudden, and the inner energy in her body flowed faster. It was completely different from before. Chu Li's palm strikes were very precise. Every palm strike was aimed at the most crucial part of her body, striking at the hidden force and injuries in her body, causing them to collapse in one hit. Although she could not be healed immediately, it was close enough. The spiritual chi of heaven and earth surged and entered her body in an instant. Li Hanyan felt as if her body was submerged in a cold spring. It was cold and comfortable at the same time. She wanted to let out a weird sound, but she held it in with all her might. Her face turned red. Chu Li asked in a low voice, "How did you suffer such heavy injuries? Those guys outside?" "It's not them." Li Hanyan shook her head. "I got injured while saving someone on the way." Chu Li frowned. "It must be someone extraordinary to be able to injure you so badly." "A young man." Li Hanyan smiled. "He's quite an interesting guy, but I didn't bring him back to Snow Lunar Pavilion. Oh? Chu gave a faint smile. Could it be that you've fallen for him? A beauty saving a hero? How is that possible? Li Hanyan curled her red lips and scoffed. I don't like those stinky men. Chu glared at her. Li Hanyan thought to herself, of course, Big Brother Chu is different. I'm also a stinky man. Chu said snappily. Alright, hurry up and treat your injuries. Yes. Li Hanyan smiled. She closed her eyes and channeled again. Her body was surging with a cool force, which was exceptionally comfortable. She quickly calmed down and her spirit slowly left her body. Her thoughts gradually drifted away. She did not need to direct it as the spiritual energy automatically wrapped around her injuries. She did not know how long it took for her to wake up. When she opened her eyes, she realized that the sky was bright. It was already the morning of the next day. Chu was sitting cross-legged behind her. He was motionless with his eyes closed, breathing deeply. She turned her head to look at him, and realized that his eyes were still closed. She stared at him curiously. She usually did not look at Chu so closely. Suddenly, she felt a little unfamiliar, as if she did not know him at all. But then, a familiar feeling arose. His temperament was extremely unique. No one else could match him. What's wrong? Chu suddenly opened his eyes, which shocked her. She quickly turned her head. Chu smiled. Is there something on my face? He knew that Li Hanyan admired him as a child. In fact, she vaguely saw him as her father. Since her father's death, Chu saved her when she was on the brink of death. He took care of her when she was at her weakest. He taught her martial arts and arranged for her future. Everything he did was like a father to his daughter. She unknowingly transferred the feelings she had for her father to Chu. It was almost unrelated to the relationship between a man and a woman. But he was not her biological father after all, so it was inevitable that there would be a hint of peculiarity. Li Hanyan blushed and shook her head. My injuries are healed. Thank you, Big Brother Chu. Why are you dilly-dallying at such a crucial time? Hurry up and greet me. Chu said, You're forcing yourself. It's fine this time. If it wasn't for that guy, I wouldn't have been injured at all. Li Hanyan shook her head. And it's just a small injury. It's nothing serious. A small injury. Chu scoffed. Li Hanyan said, But I didn't expect that guy's palm energy to be so insidious. It kept acting up repeatedly and eventually got worse. Looks like you focused too much on your swordsmanship and neglected your inner energy. Chu shook his head. Inner energy is also the foundation. Yes, yes. Li Hanyan quickly nodded. Big Brother Chu, do you want breakfast? I'll get it. Chu said impatiently, You dislike me? Ruani is miserable? Responsible? Li Hanyan's face was bitter. She looked at him helplessly. Alright, I'll listen. Chu scoffed. It's good that you listen. From tomorrow onwards, rearrange your schedule. Swordsmanship will take up 30 minutes of your time. 40? Li Hanyan said cautiously. Chu frowned. 30. All right. Li Hanyan nodded helplessly. Her red lips opened and closed. Chu glared at her. How about 20? 30. Li Hanyan quickly smiled along. Chu scoffed. You'll know how powerful it is in the future. If you don't have enough inner energy, you won't be able to use your swordsmanship no matter how powerful it is. Don't think that the swordsmanship I taught you is a trick. Yes, yes. Li Hanyan said dejectedly. Only then did Chu let her go. Did those people outside see it? Yes. Li Hanyan said, They're from the Holy Church of Light. I'll deal with them sooner or later. She was injured, so she was willing but powerless. Chapter 30:10. Chu said, If that's the case, I won't interfere. It's up to you. Of course, Big Brother Chu, don't worry. I won't be careless. Li Hanyan smiled and said, I know Big Brother Chu is worried that I'll be too proud. There's also your martial arts. Chu Li shook his head. Since they're here, it means that they have the confidence to kill you. Yes, yes. Li Hanyan nodded hurriedly. Brother Chu is good at everything except a little? Gather? Bihuang? Silent promise welding? Fence? Aluminum, said stunned. Even the 4 strontium words choked, snuggled up to the Diruyu, the kitchen, and sighed. Ruakue? Evil spirits. Chu Li glared at her, waved his hand, and disappeared in a flash. Li Hanyan's smile slowly faded as she glared in the direction of the Snow Lunar Pavilion's entrance. These people from the Holy Church of Light were really persistent. They were so annoying. Unfortunately, the Holy Church of Light was much stronger than the 4 major sects of the Ji dynasty. They would not stop their revenge just because he had taught them a lesson and killed a few of their masters. Instead, they would become even more ruthless. Provoking them was equivalent to provoking trouble. They had to keep fighting until one side fell. No matter how he thought about it, he was the one who fell first. He was not Big Brother Chu, who could deal with an entire sect alone. She furrowed her brows and pondered for a moment. In the end, she decided that she could not go all out to kill them. Instead, she wanted to maintain a stalemate. No matter how powerful she was, it was impossible for her to defeat the entire Holy Church of Light. If she won once, they would send even more powerful masters. In the end, she would still lose. Thus, he could only hide his abilities and not show off too much. Thinking of this, she shook her head. She wondered if Brother Chu would be disappointed if he knew about her decision. He had just taught her a wonderful sword technique, but she was the first one to back out. Chu Li stood outside the Snowy Moon Valley and saw Li Hanyan's thoughts. He nodded in satisfaction. She had indeed matured. If it was in the past, she would have killed without a care in the world. She wanted to kill until they were terrified. Young people were full of vigor, and it was hard to go against her nature. She didn't expect that she would be able to break away from this most instinctive reaction in such a short time. Rationality could suppress emotions, and she would not be reckless and impulsive. She could also make people feel at ease. Chu Li pondered for a moment, then disappeared in a flash. Spirit Crane's Peak. The morning sun was exceptionally bright, the sky was azure, and the air was fresh and pleasant. It had just snowed in the Great Ji dynasty, but it was still as warm as spring here. The fruits on the tree were getting more and more plump, and the fragrance was so rich that it permeated the entire Spirit Crane's Peak. Shao Qi and Shao Shi were picking the fruits from the tree. They no longer picked up the ones that had fallen to the ground, and the bunches of fruits on the tree could not be finished. They ate half of it while Xiao Shi and Xiao Qi wanted to personally brew fruit wine for the remaining half. This way, they would not have to worry about others finding out about their origins. They could also drink it often, and it would be easy to store. Li observed them. Shout to them to T to Leesley, to Li to them to them. About. Chu Li could clearly see that their center of gravity was constantly changing to offset the strong force of the strong wind. This in itself contained an extremely brilliant body technique. He complemented this method of constantly exercising with the Spirit Crane technique and gained a deeper understanding of the Spirit Crane technique. This short period of time was equivalent to studying the Spirit Crane technique assiduously for half a month. Ever since he obtained the Spirit Crane technique, he relied on his familiarity with the Spirit Cranes and felt that cultivating it would be like a fish in water. He did not expect the Spirit Crane technique to be so difficult and completely different from its name. The worst thing about the Spirit Crane technique was that it looked easy but could not be achieved. The simpler the secret manual, the more effort it would take to cultivate it. To cultivate it, one had to figure it out by oneself, just like walking a route. Moreover, the key to the Spirit Crane technique was the observation of the Spirit Cranes and the understanding of heaven and earth. It required not only the movements but also the state of mind. The former and latter were extremely difficult for people outside the 100,000 hills. Chuli had the observation of the spirit cranes and was blessed by nature, but he could not understand these unique states of mind. He vaguely understood why Green Deer Cliff was so mysterious and forbade their disciples from leaving the mountain. They were using the environment of Green Deer Cliff to cultivate their state of mind and speed up the cultivation of the spirit crane technique. He understood that to master the spirit crane technique, he had to return to Green Deer Cliff. Cultivating in an environment like Green Deer Cliff was the best for the advancement of the spirit crane technique. More importantly, the last 3 levels of the spirit crane technique. First, observe the general idea and know the beginning and end, then understand it. That would be a whole different world. If one did not know the final goal and only focused on cultivating, one's progress would definitely be slow. You don't care about Prince Kong anymore? Seo Sure tossed a yellow fruit to him and blurted out, "The fairy's capital is spreading like wildfire, the whole city is in an uproar. This time, Prince Kong is really famous." "The Crown Prince did it on purpose, didn't he?" Siochi asked. Chuli said, "Our Crown Prince is not a generous person. Before he became the Crown Prince, Leng Jinghua was solemn but not harsh. After he became the Crown Prince, he suddenly became harsh and ruthless. Why can't he tolerate Prince Kong?" Siochi frowned. "If he can't tolerate Prince Kong, it should be Prince Bao, right? Prince Bao used to be in charge of the army, and there were still many of his former subordinates in the army. His words were very effective in the army. How could he not provoke the Emperor and the Crown Prince? Prince Kong, on the other hand, was not the same. He was just a prince who had nothing better to do. He was well behaved and would usually eat and drink with Prince Bao. He did not do any evil or good deeds, so it was very easy for people to overlook him. He did not expect that he would become famous in Fairy's capital because of this matter. People were criticizing him for being ridiculous and not caring about the country. Chuli said, "With these old men around, he will be restrained in the future. It's better to ask him to leave before he ascends the throne and the Emperor is still on the throne. That way, he won't be criticized. If he dealt with the princes after he ascended the throne, his reputation would definitely be affected. People would think that he was narrow-minded and could not tolerate others. It would not be good to leave a bad impression. People's hearts are too complicated," Siochi said. Lu Yurong purposely caused this matter to spread like wildfire. Why did she do that? It was obvious that she had thought it through before she dared to do it. Only Lu Yurong and Chu Li could handle this matter calmly and skillfully. To others, they were powerless. Chu Li smiled. "Actually, it's very simple. As the Crown Prince's advisor, she only needs to think about the Crown Prince. The others are not important. If she offended them, then so be it. Chu Li, you should be the secret guardian commander." Seo Sure shook her head. She always felt that Chu Li was the most suitable. It was a pity to let Lu Yurong take the position. Chu Li smiled but did not say anything. Chapter 30:11. Chu Li frowned as he looked at the 4 black lights and shook his head. "They really are courting death. Why did they come here to die?" Seo Sure was puzzled. "I went back to check, but there were no records. Logically speaking, they knew they couldn't defeat the spirit cranes and never succeeded. Why would they still come here to die? Maybe the spirit cranes have a grudge against them," Chu Li said. He could faintly feel their hatred. Even if they died, they would bite the spirit cranes. If they could bite the spirit cranes, they would die a worthy death. This might be their tradition. These spirit snakes were psychic creatures. Their intelligence was not inferior to humans. However, they were cold-blooded animals. They did not have high EQ. The only thing they had was hatred. Once they were provoked, even if they died, their companions would definitely seek revenge. They would not rest until they died. "The spirit cranes didn't provoke them, right?" Seo Sure said. Chu Li shook his head. The spirit cranes like to eat their gallbladders. They ate quite a lot. I see. Seoshur nodded. No wonder they went crazy. Seochi said, this is how it is. One thing feeds on another. She pulled out her sword and shook it lightly. It was like a pool of autumn water swaying on the sword. The light became brighter and brighter. She channeled her energy into the sword, or else she would not be able to break the snake's skin. Ding 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 ding. She suddenly took a step forward and stood in front of Seoshur. The light from her sword fell on the two snakes like rain. The snakes' bodies were black and shiny like they were made of black iron. They looked soft but strong. Chuli raised his palm and struck. He performed the heavenly king palm. The surrounding spiritual energy was turbulent. It was the best environment for the heavenly king palm. He pushed his palm out. Suddenly, the surrounding spiritual energy was like a swallow returning to its nest. His palm energy was the nest and the surrounding spiritual energy was the swallow. His palm energy had only been pushed out for a meter, but it had already become a huge creature. It grew rapidly like a rolling snowball. In an instant it had grown to the size of his body. It was shocking. He struck out with his palm again. This time, the palm force was different from before. It was gentle and soft, and after colliding with the huge palm force from before, the two palm forces rapidly shrank, going from the size of a body to the size of a fist. Their speed suddenly increased, like a flash of light. Bang 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 bang. The two black snakes twisted their bodies, but were unable to dodge. The heavenly king palms were too fast, and arrived in an instant. They tumbled in the air, and gradually loosened their bodies. By the time they landed on the ground, the two snakes were motionless, as soft as mud. Chuli let out a long sigh of relief, and looked at his right palm in shock. He then looked at the two flying snakes. He knew how strong they were. They were truly invulnerable. The two black snakes in front of him that could not even withstand a single blow made him wonder if he had encountered them before. They did not seem to be invulnerable at all. Ding 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 ding, the sound of metal clashing was still ringing, like the sound of rain hitting the pipa. It was crisp and sweet, with a special rhythm. It was Seochi who stood in front of Seoshur and trapped the two snakes. Seoshur's swordsmanship was exquisite. She could only defend against the two snakes, forcing them to be unable to hurt her, but she could not do anything to them. Even her treasured sword could not break their bodies. These two spirit snakes were different from the ones she had encountered before. They were tougher and faster, and if she was careless, she would be bitten. She dared not be careless, and had to be 120% vigilant. While she was attacking fiercely, suddenly, a palm force appeared and hit the two snakes. The two snakes seemed to have been hit by a huge wave, and their bodies flew out involuntarily. They tumbled in the air, and finally, their bodies straightened, motionless. It was obvious that they had been shocked to death. The palm force of the heavenly king palms was powerful and overbearing. Chuli suddenly laughed out loud. Seoshur ran to the side of the two spirit snakes, and used a dried branch to poke them. She found that they were indeed dead. Seochi quickly went to her side and glared at her. Seoshur said, "Younger sister, you're still far from Chuli." Seochi looked at her unhappily. "Second sister, are you trying to sow discord? Looks like you won't be able to catch up to him." Seoshur smiled. "From what I see, you shouldn't secretly exert your strength. Just follow behind him obediently. What's the point of wasting your energy? I like to cultivate." Seochi was unconvinced. Chuli pulled out his long sword, but he could not cut the snake's skin. This time, the snake was stronger than before. He then sheathed his sword and began to practice the first form of the universe. He accumulated some of the unique inner energy of the first form of the universe, and then channeled it into his sword. Suddenly, his sword force was much sharper, and he easily cut the snake's skin. He took out the snake gall, and gave 2 to Seoshur and the rest to Seochi. Seoshur bitterly swallowed it and sighed, This thing is so disgusting. I'm glad you guys can resist it. Siochi said, I won't give it to you next time. Sio sure chuckled, you can't bear to? Chuli said, this time, the snake's skin is excellent. Take it back and sew it well. Okay, leave it to me, Sioshir said. Let's go, it's dangerous here, Siochi said. Chuli shook his head. You guys go back first. I need to think about it. What are you thinking about? Sioshir asked. Siochi pulled her sleeve. Alright, you think about it, Sioshir said. Chuli held their waists, and in a flash, he disappeared, sending them back to the imperial residence of Kingen. Then, he came back in a flash, and stood at his previous position, thinking about the previous situation. So this was the Heavenly King Palm. Although he had discovered it before, it did not have such a strong effect. It seemed that the thicker the spiritual energy, the stronger the effect. It was really scary. The Heavenly King Palm could actually be performed outside of 100,000 hills. What if he created an environment similar to 100,000 hills? He suddenly disappeared, and appeared on his own island in the High Duke's public house. Xueling was practicing the crescent palm. She was dressed in a green outfit, and she was full of youthfulness. She was cold and quiet, and there seemed to be a layer of cold air around her. Chuli suddenly said, Take this. Xueling took the opportunity to counter with her palm. Her Tai-yin palm had been cultivated to the peak of its momentum. Her chi activity was perfect and smooth, and her entire body was unobstructed. She felt indescribably refreshed, as if she could destroy anything with a single palm strike. She did not hold back and struck with her palm. Bam! She flew backward, as if there was a rope pulling her from behind. She hit the wall of the courtyard. Xueling's red lips twitched, and she looked at him in surprise. Chuli smiled. How was my palm energy? Such a strong palm energy, Xueling said helplessly, but it's so overbearing. She felt that her crescent palm was slapped back. It was extremely strong and overbearing. Fortunately, she had eaten many spirit pills and rare items, and her body was unusually tough, so she did not get hurt. Chuli smiled. I only used half of my palm energy. What palm technique? Heavenly King Palm. Too bad you can't cultivate it. Chuli shook his head. Your crescent palm is strong enough. Yes, Xueling nodded. Chapter 31:11. Master, come again. Xueling scoffed. Her inner energy had become more and more refined. She was no longer as vulnerable as before. Although she was sent flying by his palm, she might be able to take it if she was prepared next time. It was a rare opportunity to spar with him. Bam 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 bam. Xueling was sent flying again and again. Chuli struck with his palm. The Heavenly King's palm was not powerful, which was disappointing. At the same time, he used the life and death scripture to mobilize spiritual energy. Spiritual energy from all directions surged and instantly enveloped the Heavenly King's palm. Thus, the Heavenly King's palm transformed and devoured the spiritual energy ferociously. In the blink of an eye, it was completely devoured. The spiritual energy from the life and death scripture did not seem to be able to satisfy it in time. The Heavenly King's palm flew for 3 to 4 meters before it expanded several times, reaching the size of a human body. Chuli's second palm followed. The two palm energies combined and suddenly condensed into the size of a fist, colliding with Xueling's palm. Xueling could not resist this palm energy. She was like a sheep that was hit by a galloping horse. She was sent flying. The power of the Heavenly King's palm, with the support of spiritual energy, was undoubtedly 10 times stronger. It was extremely terrifying. In terms of toughness and dominance, it was better than any other palm technique he had cultivated. It was no wonder that the Heavenly King's palm could dominate the world during the era of many enlightened masters. Now that he had the Heavenly King's palm, his strength had greatly increased. As he became stronger, He felt that his martial arts was not enough. There was always someone stronger. Everyone he met was stronger than him. This made him feel helpless. This was luck. He had high hopes for the Heavenly King's palm. Unfortunately, he was extremely disappointed. Without spiritual energy in an environment, the Heavenly King's palm was like water without a source. He had been using the life and death scripture to mobilize spiritual energy to aid the cultivation of the Heavenly King's palm. However, he did not know that the Heavenly King's palm did not require spiritual energy to cultivate. It required spiritual energy when it was used. Xueling was sent flying again and again, but every time she would pounce on Xueling again and again. Her emerald green clothes were already stained with mud. Her jade-like face was also stained with some grass. She lost some of her coldness and suddenly had the aura of a pretty daughter from a humble family. Her understanding of the crescent palm deepened and she learned a lot. With a master who could help her unleash her full strength and point out her weaknesses, her cultivation would be twice the result with half the effort. The two of them practiced for more than 2 hours. Xueling had no idea how many times she had fallen. Again and again, he was already numb from the fall. All he knew was to get up and continue attacking. Finally, Chuli waved his hand and stopped. "Let's stop here for today. Master, please continue." "I can do it," Xueling quickly said. Chuli waved his hand. "Don't rush for quick result. You can't get fat in one go. You have to take it step by step to have a solid foundation." "All right." Xueling was infatuated with the feeling of improving at every moment. Chuli smiled at her and suddenly disappeared. The next moment, he appeared in Gale City and returned to his house. He sat on his bed and continued to cultivate. Ding Ruijia was like a sword that was placed right in front of his throat and could pierce through at any moment. It was an extremely unpleasant feeling. It was already sunset. Chuli sat on his bed and used the omniscient mirror to observe the area within a 10-mile radius. Not far away, Gale Branch was bustling with activity as everyone was cultivating in the courtyard. Chuli was delighted to see this. He suddenly felt a little envious of these people. They could just cultivate all day long. Apart from cultivating, they did not have to worry about anything else as long as they followed orders. Their minds were pure and their cultivation progressed very quickly. Their lives were simple and happy. They were unlike him who calculated all day long. His mind was as fast as lightning and the number of calculations he had made was equivalent to half a lifetime for an ordinary person. If these innocent and happy members of the association were harmed by Ding Ruijia, he would feel guilty. Hence, he had to stay here and prevent Ding Ruijia from killing anyone. Saint Sun Minghua promised that she would send someone who might even be a relative. It was against the rules to let her in. After all, there was no proof. What if she was a bad person? What were their protectors for? The two of them carefully looked at the old woman. They could tell that she did not know martial arts and was trembling. She did not seem like a threat. All right. You can go in and take a look," the skinny young man said softly. "However, the branch leader is very busy. He might not be here." "He's not here?" The old woman frowned. She hesitated and did not want to go in. Just then, Ko Cheong strode over and was about to enter the main door. The two young protectors bowed respectfully and told him about the old woman. Ko Cheong looked at the old woman and frowned. If he said that there was something wrong, he could not sense anything. If he said that there was nothing wrong, he felt that it was strange and inappropriate. Something was not right, but it seemed like the old woman felt that there was nothing wrong. "How about this?" Ko Cheong smiled. "The branch leader isn't here. If he comes back, I'll ask him to look for you." He decided to trust his intuition and not let the old woman enter the branch. Chapter 31:12. Sigh, forget it then. I won't go in if you don't want to. The old woman sighed. I don't have anything to do. I just heard that Day has made a name for himself, so I wanted to come and see. The two young guards looked at Ko Cheong and felt that the deputy leader was too heartless. This old woman wanted to see the leader, but he still stopped her. He was too cold. Moreover, this old woman was from the leader's hometown, so they were very close. Wasn't the deputy leader afraid that the leader would punish him if he found out? However, they were just two soldiers and had no right to question the deputy leader's decision. They could only obey, and unwillingly stood in front of the old woman. They sighed. "Old lady, you can come another day." "All right, another day is fine." The old woman nodded. As she spoke, she turned around and slowly walked out. Looking at her lonely back, the two guards felt even more uncomfortable. They felt as if they had done something unpardonably evil. They looked at Ko Cheong again. Ko Cheong frowned and stared at the old woman's back. He shook his head. "Let's stay alert and be careful." "Yes." The two nodded. Ko Cheong slowly walked inside. At that moment, a green figure suddenly appeared in front of him, blocking his way. It was the old woman from before. The old woman was still trembling as if she could be blown away by the wind at any time. Her eyes were cloudy. It was hard to imagine that such a fast movement was from her. Ko Cheong knew that his judgment was right. There was something wrong with this old woman. The old woman stared at him with her cloudy eyes, unblinking. Ko Cheong felt like the two eyes were looking right through him. He felt unspeakably uncomfortable and his hair stood on end. He felt a great threat and had the urge to run. "Deputy leader." The two guards were about to step forward. Ko Cheong raised his hand, signaling them not to come over. He said in a low voice, "You two leave." The two were startled and did not understand. "Go find the leader," Ko Cheong said. "Yes." The two of them understood. They glanced at the old woman and hurriedly ran out. The deputy division leader was indeed worthy of being the deputy division leader. His eyesight was not something they could compare with. This old woman in front of them was pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger. She obviously had an unfathomable cultivation, yet she still said that she was from the division leader's hometown. It must be a lie. She lied to them, but in fact, she was looking for trouble with the division leader. When they thought of this, they were both angry and helpless. With their innate realm cultivation, they were already considered experts outside, but in Gale Branch, they were the weakest and couldn't help at all. Even if they worked as hard as they could, they would not be able to catch up to the others. Fortunately, their cultivation speed in Gale Branch was 3 to 4 times faster than before. At this rate, it was not impossible for them to become grandmasters before the age of 30. It was said that there was a way to enter the surpassing state and become a grandmaster in Gale Branch. This was also the reason why Gale Branch was so attractive and sought after. Because of the Holy Church of Light, no one doubted this. Seeing them disappear, Ko Cheong heaved a sigh of relief. Their martial arts were ordinary now, but they were all potential. If they were trained well, they would all become grandmasters. They were very important to Gale Branch, and it would be a great loss for them to die prematurely. He met the old woman's murky gaze and suppressed his urge to turn and run. He asked coldly, "Who are you, and what do you want?" "Zhao Dai is your branch leader?" the old woman asked slowly. Ko Cheong said, "Yes, our branch leader is Zhao Dai." "That's good." A smile appeared on the old woman's face. With a flash, she appeared behind Ko Cheong. Her movements were unbelievably fast. Ko Cheong sensed that something was wrong. Suddenly, he was alarmed. A small right hand was already on his back. His heart was as cold as ice. He knew that he was finished. Bang! Like a spring thunder, he felt an extremely strong force coming from his back. It was as if he was swept up by a huge wave. He somersaulted twice in the air, and turned to look after the force was released. Chu Li had already appeared and caught the old woman's palm. The old woman was Ding Ruijie in disguise. Chu Li's heavenly king palm and her 9 kills palm collided. Surprisingly, they were evenly matched. Both of them took a step back, but the force formed by the collision of their palms was so strong that Ko Cheong was pushed far away. "You're finally here," Ding Weijie said. "Go and apologize to Xiao Gu." As soon as she finished speaking, she attacked again. Chu Li suddenly took a step back. When he was 5 steps away, he attacked with his palm. The surrounding spiritual energy from heaven and earth surged and instantly expanded his palm energy. At the same time, he attacked with his other palm and combined with this palm energy, forming a fist. The size of this fist energy could not be seen by others, but he could see it clearly with the omniscient mirror. He could see the process of the sudden acceleration and instantly hit Ding Weijie's right palm. Bang! When the palm energy collided, there was another muffled explosion. Ko Cheong hurriedly retreated and hid behind a stone lion. He could feel the stone lion shake, as if it was about to be pushed out of position. He was shocked and thought to himself, "What a strong palm energy! I really can't take it head-on. The branch leader's cultivation level is really high." Chu Li smiled. He was finally not afraid of Ding Weijie anymore. The power of the Heavenly King Palm was beyond imagination, and he was full of confidence. "What palm technique is that?" Ding Weijie asked. Chu Li said, "Make a guess." He did not want others to know that it was the Heavenly King Palm. Moreover, no one who had experienced the Heavenly King Palm was still alive. If he did not say it, others would not know that he was using the Heavenly King Palm. Ding Weijie said, "Zhao Dai, interesting." Chu Li turned his head and said, "Ko Cheong, go back first. Make sure no one comes out." "Yes." Ko Cheong quickly responded and jumped over the wall into the branch. Chu Li turned to look at Ding Weijie. "What are you trying to do?" "Actually, I don't have to personally take revenge," Ding Weijie said. Chu Li frowned and remained silent. Ding Weijie said, "If Sun Mingyue knew your real identity," Chu Li smiled. "What real identity?" Chu Li's heart sank. In the end, she had guessed it. However, he had to be wary of how much she had guessed and whether she was trying to trick him. "You're the first person to be able to sneak into the Holy Church of Light." Ding Weijie looked at him with a faint smile. "Do you think I'm tricking you?" Chu Li shook his head. "I don't understand what you're talking about." "Sneak into the Holy Church of Light? You're not from the Li dynasty, are you?" Ding Weijie seemed to enjoy watching him like a cat toying with a mouse. She wanted to torture him first. Chu Li frowned. "I'm an orphan. No one knows where I'm from." "Why? Are you interested in where I'm from?" "I don't need to know that to avenge Liang Yinge, do I? Life and death are fated. Xiao Ji's life is like that. Although I wanted to change it, I couldn't do it. It can't be helped. Who can resist the heavens?" Ding Weijie said. Chu Li said, "That's good. It's good that you're able to accept it. We don't have to fight to the death. Xiao Ji's life is his business. Whether I avenge him or not is my business." Ding Weijie said, "My life is boring. It's good to have something to do." Chapter 31:13. Chu Li smiled. "The world is so beautiful, but you've enjoyed too much. You're saying that life is meaningless. Is it because you're not smart enough?" Ding Weijie said, "I now know that the most interesting thing is revenge." Chu Li said, "If that's the case, come at me." "I might not be able to kill you," Ding Weijie said. Her cultivation level was higher than Chu Li's, but her martial arts skills were not up to par. The 9 kills palm was supposed to restrain him, but now that he had cultivated such a powerful palm technique, she could no longer restrain him. In that case, she would have to perish together with him. She was not afraid of perishing together with him. If she died, she would go to the Outland to meet that guy. However, if she died without killing Zhao Dave, she would be too ashamed to face him. Chu Li asked, "What do you want then?" "I want to talk to Sun Mingyue," Ding Weijie said. Chu Li frowned. "The saint?" "The saint is at the Great Light Peak, not everyone can meet her. As long as I spread the word, Sun Mingyue will definitely come to see me, Ding Ruijie said. Chu Li scoffed. Why do you want to meet the saint? He knew that Ding Ruijie was right. She was well versed in divination, and based on this, Sun Mingyue would not reject her. He wanted to know what she wanted to talk about. Ding Ruijie said, Let's talk about your identity. What are you trying to say? Chu Li said impatiently. What identity? I have a clean background. I've done a thorough investigation before I joined the church. You can't just say whatever you want. Ding Ruijie shook her head. No matter how thorough their investigation is, do they know that you're originally from the East? The East. You're from the Ji dynasty, right? I'm from the Fu dynasty, Chu Li said impatiently. You're the successor of divination. Don't talk nonsense and ruin the reputation of the Prophecy Pavilion, all right? You're from the Ji dynasty, Ding Ruijie said. I believe that Sun Mingyue will investigate once I tell her. Chu Li said, The saint might not believe your tricks. Let's try then. Ding Ruijie said, I know how powerful Sun Mingyue is. If she really wants to investigate, do you still think you can survive? However, to be able to become a branch leader, you are indeed an outstanding person. It is not an injustice for little Gu to die in your hands. Fine, fine. You want to kill me with a borrowed knife, Chu Li said calmly. Bring it on then. I'd like to see if the saint believes you or me. Then let's wait and see. Ding Ruijie said. A green shadow flashed, and she appeared 100 meters away from Chu Li. This godlike light body technique made Chu Li very wary, as it was a piece of cake for her to kill any of his subordinates. Such a dangerous enemy must be eliminated. However, he did not chase after her directly. He wanted to see what she wanted to do. It was not difficult to follow her. He was worried that she would turn around and teach the people of Gale Branch a lesson. She had charged into the Gale Branch. Clearly, not only did she want to kill him, she wanted to torture him before killing him. After a while, he saw that Ding Ruijie had already left. In the blink of an eye, she was already 10 miles away, so he instantly disappeared. He followed her closely, wanting to see where she was going. He was extremely envious of Ding Ruijie's light body technique. Most of the time, he could not expose his god's limbs. If he had her light body technique now, he would be much stronger when fighting an enemy. Ding Ruijie's body was like a shadow as she drifted forward. His heart sank as he realized that Ding Ruijie was heading toward the Great Light Peak. It was obvious that Ding Ruijie knew about the Great Light Peak. It seemed like she was really going to find Sun Mingyue and expose his identity. He did not know how much Ding Ruijie had divined, whether she knew everything about his identity, or whether she only knew that he was from the Ji dynasty. He hoped that Ding Ruijie would only be able to tell that he was from the Ji dynasty, but not everything about him. It was obvious that heavenly prophecy was not omnipotent and could not be so detailed. If she had really divined everything about him, she should not have shown such a calm expression. She should have been surprised. Ding Ruijie's mind was as calm as still water. Most things in the world had already been settled, except for this. As long as she told Sun Mingyue about this, she could borrow her hands to kill Zhao Dai. Then, there would be no reason for her to stay in this world anymore. Back then, she did not follow her senior brother because of Xiao Gu. She needed to take good care of Xiao Gu and pass on her bloodline. Now that Xiao Gu had passed away, she had fulfilled her duty and should go to the Outland to meet her senior brother. When she saw Liang Inga's death, she was in so much pain and resentment that she wanted to destroy the world. However, this anger soon dissipated and gradually calmed down. Now, she no longer had that monstrous hatred. There was only one thought in her mind, which was to fulfill her duty and not to take revenge. Chu Li followed closely behind her as he thought of a way to deal with it. Under such circumstances, if he did not kill her, everything would be destroyed if he was exposed. Not only would all his previous efforts be wasted, but more importantly, he would be hunted down by the Holy Church of Light. The Holy Church of Light's strength was beyond imagination, and they had many masters. If they really wanted to hunt him down, would he be able to withstand it? Even if he could, what about the people around him? However, why did she directly go to the Great Light Peak? Why did she not kill the people around him first and make him suffer first? After hesitating for a moment, he finally decided to be safe. Regardless of whether she was testing him or not, he had to stop her first. When he thought of this, he suddenly appeared in front of Ding Ruijie and blocked her way. Ding Ruijie stopped and looked at him with a faint smile. Chu Li took a deep breath and said coldly, "What do you know?" Ding Ruijie said, "You're from the Ji dynasty, but you're a spy in the Holy Church of Light. It's obvious what your identity is. Are you a secret guardian from the Ji dynasty's secret guardians hall?" "Yes." Chu Li nodded slowly. Ding Ruijie said, "Looks like the Ji dynasty can't be underestimated. Someone like you actually managed to sneak into the Holy Church of Light. The Holy Church of Light is known to be the hardest to sneak into because Sun Mingyue has the ability to read minds. How did you manage to hide from her?" "I was just lucky," Chu Li said. "I'm very curious about this. If you tell me the truth, I might be able to let you off the hook," Ding Ruijie said. Chu Li chuckled and shook his head. "Let me off the hook," Ding Ruijie said. "Letting you off the hook doesn't mean sparing you, it means sparing your subordinates. Although you're from the Ji dynasty, you still have feelings for your subordinate. You can't bear for them to die, right?" Chu Li frowned and his gaze became sharper. "I can't kill you. I'll have to use Sun Mingyue's hand, but you can't kill me either." Ding Ruijie said, "So, you can either tell me the truth or I'm too lazy to learn it. I'm just satisfying my curiosity. There aren't many interesting things in this world." "All right," Chu Li said. "Actually, I have a question to ask." "Speak," Ding Ruijie said. Chu Li said, "How far have you calculated?" "You're from the Ji dynasty," Ding Ruijie said. "Only this." "Yes, this is enough," Ding Ruijie said. Chapter 31:14. Do you look down on heavenly prophecy? Ding Ruijie's face darkened. Chu Li shook his head. "Fate is unpredictable. Who can predict it?" "I only know a little about heavenly prophecy," Ding Ruijie said coldly. "Even so, predicting fate is enough." Chu Li smiled. "Then, can you predict my fate?" "I can't." Ding Ruijie scoffed. This Zhao Dai was very strange. His body was shrouded in a fog, which was different from the nobles of the emperor. In short, predicting his fate would backfire badly and the prediction would not be accurate. "Can the Pavilion of Prophecy do that?" "I'm afraid not," Ding Ruijie said. The disciples of the Pavilion of Prophecy were the manipulators of fate. They did not travel the world for grudges but to observe, respect, predict, and even create fate. If she was manipulated by fate, it would be a failure as a disciple of the Pavilion of Prophecy. She was a failure who could not change her fate. She was a disciple of the Pavilion of Prophecy, but her life was filled with misfortune. She lost her loved ones one by one, yet she could not do anything about it. However, her failure was understandable when it came to Zhao Dai. Even the most elite disciple of the Pavilion of Prophecy would end up the same. Ding Ruijie said, "All right, you can tell me how you managed to fool Sun Mingyue." Chu Li smiled and shook his head. Ding Ruijie's face darkened. She stared at him coldly. "All right, just you wait." With a flash, she appeared 100 feet away. With another flash, she appeared 200 feet away. Her movements were as illusory as a shadow. Chu Li appeared behind her in the next moment and struck with his palm. The Heavenly King palm was unusually violent. Ding Ruijie did not expect him to be so precise. She hastily received the attack and was sent flying 10 meters away. Chu Li swung his arms and 2 streams of light caught up to her. Ding Ruijie met the light blades with her palms. This time, the light blades were even more powerful. As soon as she attacked, the blades hit her chest but were blocked by the treasured clothing she wore. She was sent flying again. Chu followed closely behind. He only had one chance to kill her. If he let her go, she would be able to predict it with her powerful heavenly prophecy. It would be difficult to kill her again. Moo! Chu suddenly shouted and used the musical assassination technique. Then, he appeared behind her and unleashed a heavenly king palm. This palm strike was different from the previous one. The two palm strikes, one left and one right, first fused together, then absorbed the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. The palm force condensed in the center of the palm, and like a palm thunder, it pressed into Ding Ruijie's back. She spat out a mouthful of blood. This heavenly king palm was extremely ferocious and overbearing. After it entered her body, it didn't allow her to block it and directly shattered her internal organs. Even if she had inner force protecting her body, it was useless as it was forcefully shattered. Her vitality was strong. Even though her internal organs were shattered, she did not die. After spitting out this mouthful of blood, she suddenly became much more energetic. Her eyes were burning and her whole body was surrounded by a monstrous force. Like a green light, she instantly shot towards Chu. Bam! Their palm energies collided. Chu did not expect her to be so fast. He could not use his full strength in such a hurry and could only retreat. However, this force was exceptionally strange. There were several types of changes mixed together. Even if he used the Earth Matrix and reincarnation scripture to dispel it, it was still a little strenuous. By the time he completely dispelled this strange force, she had already disappeared. Chu used the omniscient mirror to observe 10 miles away. Just as he was about to follow her, he realized that she had suddenly disappeared from his mind. Therefore, he shrank to 10 miles away. Although the omniscient mirror could observe 10 miles away, he usually paid attention to 10 miles away. Since he still had energy left, his vision was clearer and more comfortable. He immediately shrank to 10 miles away, but he still could not see her. 5 miles for miles until 1 mile away, he still could not see Ding Ruijie. Could she really have disappeared? Or did she also have a strange skill similar to God's limbs? He thought about it. The disciples of the Prophecy Pavilion were mysterious and powerful. No one could figure out how powerful they were. He was afraid that Ding Ruijie also had a strange skill that she had not used. Liang Ying liked to hide his trump card. He had one trump card after another. He was afraid that he had learned it from Ding Ruijie. He frowned and carefully sensed the existence of his heavenly king palm energy. However, he found that it had been cut off. It was as if Ding Ruijie had died and the heavenly king palm energy had disappeared. Of course, there was also a possibility that Ding Ruijie had dispelled the palm energy. For now, it seemed that Ding Ruijie had dispelled the palm energy. His heart kept sinking as he completely lost his sense of Ding Ruijie. There was no longer any trace of her existence between heaven and earth. It was as if she had completely disappeared and left this world. He stood in the same place and frowned. She must have used a secret skill to escape. If he could not kill her, there would be endless trouble. She would definitely find Sun Mingyue and tell him his identity. From then on, he would not have a peaceful day. Thinking of this, his killing intent surged. He had to kill her. Even if he could not kill her, he had to shut her up. However, the difficulty of doing this was beyond imagination. She could predict all kinds of troubles and avoid them in advance. If he wanted to kill her, it would be as difficult as ascending to heaven. He suddenly felt a little annoyed and thought of a countermeasure. He could not delay it for too long. Otherwise, if she really ran to Sun Mingyue, he would definitely be exposed. Everything he had done in the past would turn into water, and many people would be implicated. It was impossible to find her. Everything on her had disappeared without a trace, and he could not find her even if he wanted to. He paced with his hands behind his back. The more anxious he became, the calmer his heart became. He was eager to find a countermeasure. After walking back and forth a few times, he suddenly stopped. He closed his eyes and began to sense. Suddenly, he disappeared without a trace. When he reappeared, he was already in a ravine. The ravine was located deep in the mountains and was surrounded by lush trees. Even in this winter, the trees were still green. The inside of the ravine was as warm as spring. It was really a good place to live in seclusion. He slowly stepped into the ravine and walked inside step by step. He arrived outside a wooden house and looked around. Seeing that there was no movement around, he opened the door and stepped in. The house was empty. There was almost nothing in it. It made people wonder if it was a place for people to live. He placed 2 flying blades on the table. They were as bright as new and gave off a chilly aura. It seemed that they had the ability to suppress evil and ward off evil spirit. Julie felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity with these 2 flying blades. It was as if he had seen someone he had known for a long time. It was the light blade that he had shot out. It was shockingly powerful. He did not expect to see it here. He stepped forward and reached out his hand. Just as he was about to take the blades, he suddenly stopped and looked around. In the end, he did not find anything suspicious. However, he could not help but feel that something was strange. It was as if someone had deliberately led him here. When he thought of this, his heart trembled slightly. This place was either Liang Ying's or left for her master's junior. In short, there was nothing good here. He wanted to see how lucky he was and whether Ding Ruijie could escape. Chapter 31:15. He squinted his eyes and used the omniscient mirror to observe his surroundings. He found that the small valley was not big, but the terrain was excellent. His expression changed slightly and he was about to use God's limbs to leave. His surroundings suddenly changed and the omniscient mirror lost all senses. The world turned dark and he did not know where he was. There was only darkness. He could not use God's limbs anymore. He did not know where he was and could not find the place he wanted to go in the void. Once he used it, he would be trapped in the infinite void, unable to find this world or even return to this place. He quickly retracted the omniscient mirror and observed himself. His body shone brightly and the void in his mind was still vast and endless. A Buddha and a demon stood with their backs facing each other, chanting. Lotuses of different colors floated in the sky and finally returned to the Buddha and demon bodies to strengthen their Dharmakaya. In the omniscient mirror, his inner energy was like a stream under the moonlight. The spiritual energy around him was like the moonlight, brightening his body and illuminating his surroundings so that he would not get lost. He withdrew from the omniscient mirror and looked around. He was in a vast sea of clouds and could not see his surroundings. He could not see up or down, which made him feel an inexplicable sense of despair. Chu furrowed his brows in deep thought. He recalled what the omniscient mirror had observed before the formation was activated, and combined it with the surrounding terrain. He speculated that this was a 5 ultimate universe formation. The 5 ultimate elements were the 5 sources of absolute benefit. Once all 5 senses were sealed, they would not be able to be used, and they would become a cripple who could not hear, smell, taste, or feel. Other than sealing his 5 senses, there were also the 5 ultimate elements of fire, wind, snow, and thunder. A slight movement would cause wind and rain, and thunder and lightning would strike. Each move was fatal, leaving no way out. He had a deep understanding of the Tao of array formations. By chance, he had studied this Qiankuan 5-terminal formation. As long as it was a formation, no matter how deadly it was, there must be a way out. He wanted to break out, but it was impossible with his martial arts and divine power. The only way was to find this way out. The formation was a world of its own. All his divine power and martial arts could not resist the power of the formation. He was like a frog under an elephant's feet. How could he jump? It was useless. He had to find the only way out. "Senior Ding, please show yourself," Chu said loudly. No matter how stupid he was, he knew that this was Ding Ruijie's doing. Initially, he thought that he could use his flying dagger to sense Liang Ying's original residence. As long as he found Liang Ying's grave, he could rely on Ding Ruijie's heavenly prophecy art to sense Liang Ying's grave and lead her back. Unexpectedly, Ding Ruijie was even smarter. She used the flying daggers as bait and set up the 5-terminal universe formation here. The surroundings were empty and no sound came out. Chu knew that Ding Ruijie was watching from the side. She had to do it herself. "Does Senior Ding really want to kill me?" Chu asked. "Don't you want to know my secret?" The surroundings were still empty, without a single sound. Ding Ruijie clearly wanted him to despair and break down. Once she collapsed, her willpower would vanish. She would then say whatever she wanted to ask, and it would be even more painful. She would definitely feel great if she killed him. Chu continued, "This is the 5 ultimate universe formation, right?" He needed to give Ding Ruijie enough pressure. No matter how smart a person was, they would do stupid things under great pressure. This was his chance. Ding Ruijie stood motionlessly at the side. He needed some time to break the array. During this period of time, Ding Ruijie could do many things. It would not be difficult for her to kill everyone in Gale Branch. It would also be troublesome for her to look for Sun Mingyue. Chu said, "The 5 ultimate universe formation is indeed powerful, but it's not without weaknesses." There was still no movement in the surroundings. Ding Ruijie had enough patience. Chu smiled. "It's very easy to break the 5 ultimate universe formation." Ding Ruijie still did not say anything. Chu said, "I can break this array in 15 minutes. Do you believe me, Senior Ding?" Ding Ruijie finally could not help but sneer. This 5 ultimate universe formation was the result of her painstaking efforts to find this wonderful place. After 20 years of modification, it was finally formed into a perfect array. Once trapped in the array, even an enlightened master would have to spend a lot of effort to break it, let alone a grandmaster. Chu shook his head. "In my opinion, Senior Ding has made a mistake." Ding Ruijie calmed down and remained unmoved. Chu said, "Senior Ding has planted 2 more trees on the Sun position. This way, the wood energy is too strong, which has affected the balance of the 5 ultimate universe formation. Its power has been greatly reduced, and it has even become a fatal weakness. I only need to bombard it with my inner energy, and it will be easy to break." Ding Ruijie was standing at the peak of a mountain, looking down at Chu in the valley. Her green robe fluttered in the wind, and her face that had regained its smoothness showed a solemn expression. Chu's words hit the nail on the head. Chu continued, "Senior Ding, I think you can't tell that these 2 trees are not ordinary trees. They are full of vitality, and the wood energy is much more abundant than ordinary trees. In the end, it has become a weakness. Senior Ding, you are a sentimental person." Chu shook his head and smiled. "You have developed feelings for these 2 trees, and you can't bear to destroy one of them. You water them every day, trim them, and watch them grow little by little. People say that plants are heartless, but they don't know how they can be heartless. Senior Ding, you practice divination, so your senses are sharp. You can vaguely feel their feelings, right?" "Shut up." Ding Ruijie could not help but shout. She was shocked. She did not expect Chu to say something like that. How could plants be heartless? As soon as these words came out, his knowledge was above Shao Ji's. Chu sighed. "Senior Ding, if you don't let me go, then I can only offend you and destroy these 2 trees." "Humph!" Ding Ruijie sneered. In the formation, heaven and earth were one and everything was one. As long as the formation was not broken, not a single plant or tree could be destroyed. This Zhao Dai was really arrogant. Chu Li said, "How about we make a bet?" "What?" Ding Weijie scoffed. Chu Li had always liked to solve the biggest problem with the smallest price. If it was in his past life, of course, it would not be suitable. However, people in this era took oaths and bets very seriously, so they would not go back on their word. If I can break this formation, the grudge between me and Liang Inga will be written off. In your dreams. Hee, Senior Ding, do you want to fight to the death with me? It's good that you understand. Forget it. Chu Li sighed. The 5 ultimate formation cut off all senses. She could hear each other's words, which meant that her position was on the only way out. Only there could she talk to the people in the formation and hear each other's voices. Through the topography imprinted in his mind by the omniscient mirror, he knew where the formation was activated. As such, he could conclude that the peak of the mountain was where the life door of the formation was located, and Ding Ruijie's position was his locator. The sound she made was the channel that he could use. I wonder how Senior Ding wants to deal with my subordinates? Kill them all. Ding Ruijie said faintly, "You won't be lonely. Isn't it better to let them accompany you down there?" Chapter 31:16. Chu Li used her voice to locate her location and kept correcting the location in his mind. He overlapped with reality so that he did not need to see or feel and could directly rush over. There could not be any difference between the two, or else one wrong step would lead to a series of wrong steps. He continued, "Senior Ding, why do you have to do this? They're innocent. Aren't you afraid of harming the heavens?" "I'll leave this world after I kill them," Ding Ruijie said. "You don't have to plead for mercy. Their fates are already sealed." Chu Li's killing intent surged. "Then I have no choice but to offend you." He disappeared in a flash and rushed to the position he had set in his mind. He took a step forward and the scenery before him changed. The strong wind howled and the strong wind was like knives cutting his body. He had the treasured clothing and inner energy to protect his body. Otherwise, he would have been frozen. He had already closed his eyes to avoid looking around so that his vision would not affect his footstep. However, he knew that it was difficult to do so. A person's senses would be constantly affected by the outside world. They might think that they were walking in a straight line, but they would unknowingly go astray. The 5 ultimate universe formation affected their senses and humans could not resist it. He relied on the omniscient mirror to control his body and Mahavairokkana's immobility scripture to suppress his senses and minimize the influence of the outside world. However, the power of the formation was extremely strong. He could only hold on for a short time, just a few breaths. If he could not reach his goal in a few breaths, it would be 100 times more difficult to break the formation on his own. The cold wind entered his body, and he was almost frozen. It seemed like the treasured clothing had lost its effect. He took another step forward. The extreme cold instantly turned into extreme heat. The air seemed to have turned into lava. His hair curled up and his body gave off a burning smell. The feeling of being roasted made him feel like he was going to collapse. He wanted to fly away immediately. The omniscient mirror observed his body and realized that his body was heating up rapidly. His temperature rose rapidly as if he was going to burn. He quickly visualized the cold lake that the spirit crane had brought him to. He carefully experienced the feeling of diving into the cold lake. Waves of cold air flowed from his mind to his entire body and suppressed the rising temperature. He took another step forward. One step was equivalent to 10 others. He strode across the sky like a shooting star. He shut his eyes to prevent himself from looking at his surroundings. The appearance was born from the heart, and the heart changed according to the appearance. Even the strongest mind would inevitably be affected by external appearance. Boom! A huge clap of thunder exploded beside his ear. His mind was blank, and his thoughts seemed to have stopped working. Boom! Rumble! Boom! The continuous thunder made him tremble all over. Under the might of heaven, he was so small and insignificant, as if a single thunder could blow him up into pieces at any time. Mahavairokkana's immobility scripture circulated in his mind. In the blink of an eye, the void in his mind reappeared. He regained his clarity and exclaimed inwardly that it was amazing. If not for the protection of Mahavairokkana's immobility scripture, he would have become an idiot who would never wake up again. This 5 ultimate Qianquan formation indeed lived up to its name. Rumble, 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 rumble. Each thunderclap was more powerful than the one before. It was as if thunder was the only sound in the world. It was as if he was trapped in a lightning prison. An aura of destruction enveloped his surroundings, and he felt like he could be turned to ashes at any moment. He gritted his teeth and continued to rush forward. Crack! A voice that made his scalp tingle suddenly rang out. Even with his eyes closed, he could still feel the light shining brightly. The omniscient mirror had been curled up in his body to control his movements and did not observe the outside world. Even so, he knew that a bolt of lightning had struck him. He was very familiar with this feeling. He had experienced this feeling many times when he used the Eclipse Purloined skill. When the power of thunder entered his body, all inner energy was not worth mentioning in front of it. Thunder was the cardinal of heaven and earth, and it was above all other forces. He instantly froze and could not move. All of his inner energy was circulating desperately, and several heart techniques were circulating along their own routes. At this critical moment of life and death, his ability to multitask was displayed to the fullest. The Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture, Cloud Slashing Power, Heavenly Demonic Power, Divine Light Technique, and many other martial arts were dispelling the power of thunder. All of these techniques were extraordinary. Soon, a trace of the power of thunder was dissolved, and his body moved. He disregarded his injuries and desperately took a step forward. After one step, he came to a world of ice and snow. The cold suddenly entered his body, and while he was weak, it directly entered his organs. The blood flow in his organs slowed down, and his thoughts seemed to slow down as well. He gritted his teeth and desperately urged his inner energy to circulate to dispel the cold. Before he could dispel this wave of cold, another wave of cold had arrived. The 2 waves of cold overlapped, and their power was even stronger. His thoughts seemed to be slower, and the circulation of his inner energy seemed to be slower as well. Chu Li knew that if this went on, he would soon freeze to death. In his mind, he visualized the scorching sun. A sun emitted thousands of golden rays as it rose from the void and shone on his body. Suddenly, his body felt warm, and the cold in his organs was dispelled. His blood flow gradually became stronger. He took advantage of the fact that he could move and hurriedly took another step forward. The scorching heat that came at him immediately enveloped him. It was as if his entire body was about to split open. There was no buffer between the extreme cold and the scorching heat. His originally shrunken body suddenly expanded. The change was too fast. Under the cold contraction and the heat expansion, his body seemed to have cracks. He did not dare to move violently. He could only move gently, for fear of breaking himself. He gritted his teeth and took another 2 steps to reach the life gate. Then, he took another step and encountered the extreme cold again. The cracks that were originally split open seemed to be bigger, and his body almost fell apart. Another step and it became scorching heat again. He felt that he could not take it anymore. From the extreme cold to the scorching heat, then to the extreme evil, and then to the scorching heat again. The cold and heat alternated so violently that even iron and stone could not withstand it. Not to mention his body of flesh and blood, he was about to collapse. His flesh and blood would shatter and scatter on the ground, turning into ashes. However, this feeling did not affect his progress. Instead, he became more determined. Unmoved, he continued to take another step forward. Suddenly, his vision became clear. A nine tribulations palm energy surged toward him. Chu Li took the hit head-on. He stood firmly on the spot and spat out a mouthful of blood. He was already injured by the formation. Now that he was hit by Ding Ruijie's inner energy, his injuries became more serious. However, no matter how serious his injuries were, he could not retreat. If he fell into the formation again, it would be difficult for him to survive. After witnessing the power of the 5 Ultimate Universe formation, he realized that he had underestimated it. "Moo!" he suddenly shouted, and the musical assassination technique appeared again. Ding Ruijie was shocked. He appeared behind her in a flash and slammed both his palms at the same time. He had gathered all the inner energy in his body to perform a Heavenly King palm. Ding Ruijie was stunned. She hurriedly faced the Heavenly King palm and instantly fell into the formation. Chu Li finally breathed a sigh of relief. He smiled, but a trace of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Even though Ding Ruijie was the person who set up the formation, it would take her some effort to get out after falling into the formation. He looked around. All his senses returned to his body. He could see the entire formation clearly. He quickly analyzed it and wanted to take over the 5 Ultimate Universe formation. He wanted to trap Ding Ruijie in the formation to prevent her from coming out and harming others. Chapter 31:17. The 5 Ultimate Universe formation was extremely complicated. Although he had studied it before, it was his first time seeing it. His mind raced as he quickly analyzed it and turned it into his own formation. A moment later, Ding Ruijie arrived with a surging palm energy. Chu Li gritted his teeth and used the Heavenly King palm. Bang! Ding Ruijie was sent flying again and fell into the formation. Chu Li knew that he could not delay any longer. Otherwise, Ding Ruijie could break out again. She was the one who set up the formation and naturally knew how to get out. The only way to trap her was to change the formation, but it was not easy to change it. Now that the formation was operating on its own and the 5 elements were connected, it did not need or repel external forces. It was difficult for him to change it by force. He needed a profound formation cultivation to do so. It was not easy for him to change the operation of the formation. Woo! Ding Ruijie's palm energy came again. Chu Li used the Heavenly King palm again. The Heavenly King palm energy was strange and overbearing. Even if it could not hurt Ding Ruijie, it could still send her flying into the formation. Chu Li endured it, but his injuries kept worsening. He did not care. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth kept healing his body. As long as he successfully changed the formation, he would be able to kill Ding Ruijie once and for all. Otherwise, he would not be able to sleep and eat in peace. When he thought about the Holy Church of Light hunting him and Ding Ruijie killing Ko Qiong and the others, he wanted to kill her. He could not let Ding Ruijie live. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. He took out 2 jade pendants and stood at the top of the mountain to stare at the valley below. Finally, he gritted his teeth and threw the 2 jade pendants that were glowing with a warm luster to the north and south. Suddenly, there was a loud boom. The surrounding sky seemed to distort like ripples on a lake. Chu Li let out a long sigh of relief. His pale face had a tinge of red. This time, it was extremely exhausting. He had used almost all of his intelligence to find the 2 formation cores and change the 5 ultimate Qian Kuan formation into the Qian Kuan extermination formation. Once the formation was completed, there was almost no life in the formation. Boom! There was an explosion and a lightning struck Ding Ruijie. Ding Ruijie barely moved 3 feet to the side to avoid it. The ground was scorched black. Although Ding Ruijie avoided it, she was still shocked. Chu Li smiled. Now, it was Ding Ruijie's turn to have a taste of what he had experienced earlier. She wanted to experience the power of the formation. He might be able to avoid it, but she might not be able to. His smile suddenly froze. Ding Ruijie's figure suddenly swayed and disappeared from the omniscient mirror. Chu Li was stunned. Ding Ruijie had used this technique to escape earlier. He could clearly see Ding Ruijie, but the omniscient mirror could not sense her. It was as if she had disappeared from the world. He didn't need to think too much to know that it was a secret technique of the Pavilion of Heavenly Secret. The lightning in the sky slowly dissipated. Ding Ruijie's face was as pale as a sheet. Her body was getting thinner and weaker, as if she could be blown away by a gust of wind. She walked slowly and gracefully across the ravine, as if she was walking on flat ground. From the outside of the ravine, she walked into the small house in the ravine and disappeared from Chu Li's sight. The 5 Ultimate Universe formation that Chu Li had put in so much effort to modify suddenly became ineffective. It did not seem to have noticed her at all. Chu Li's face darkened. The Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries indeed lived up to its name. With this technique, they could avoid all formations. Wouldn't those protective formations be useless against them? He knew that such a strange technique must have come at a great cost, but it did not matter to Ding Ruijie. Chu Li's figure flashed and entered the formation. At this time, he had already seen through the formation. He walked in the formation as if he was walking on flat ground. 3 to the left and 4 to the right. He followed a special footwork and walked forward until he reached the small house in the ravine. Ding Ruijie walked out of the small house and stood at the door. She looked at him coldly. "Zhao Daif, I have underestimated you." Chu Li said, "What kind of strange technique did Senior Ding just use?" "It's useless even if you know," Ding Ruijie said lightly. "The secret technique of the Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries?" Chu Li said. Ding Ruijie said lightly, "The heaven-deceiving technique." Chu Li smiled. "It must have come at a great cost?" "Man can be deceived, but not the heavens." Ding Ruijie said, "Do you want to learn it?" Chu Li said, "I'll pass on the strange technique of the Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries." He kept a respectful distance from the Pavilion of Heavenly Mysteries. He felt that this group of people were abnormal. They fought with the heavens all day long. It was simply suicidal. How could fate be controlled and used so easily? It was no different from asking a tiger for its skin. Ding Ruijie said lightly, "You can't kill me." Chu Li suddenly threw out 2 flying blades. The electric light flashed and appeared in front of her. Ding Ruijie did not dodge and attacked with her palm. Chu Li countered with the Heavenly King palm. Bam! Chu Li flew out and dissipated the palm energy. This time, he did not have to take it head-on. Ding Ruijie was sent flying by the Heavenly King palm. At the same time, she was hit by 2 blades. However, she was wearing treasured clothing, so the flying blades could not hurt her. Chu Li felt helpless. If he did not have external help, it was almost impossible to kill Ding Ruijie. The secret technique on her was impossible to guard against. She could escape at any time, but he could not let her escape. Ding Ruijie fluttered into the formation. Suddenly, that strange feeling appeared again. Chu Li let out a smile. He concluded that the heaven-deceiving technique would cause him endless trouble. He wanted to force her to keep using it. He wanted to see how long she could use it and whether she would be hurt by the heaven-deceiving technique. He chased after Ding Ruijie like a shadow and attacked her with the Heavenly King palm. Ding Ruijie dodged and attacked, but she could not get rid of Chu Li. She fluttered out of the formation. Chu Li desperately used his light body technique to block her way. Unfortunately, Ding Ruijie's light body technique was far better than his. In the end, she escaped from the 5 Ultimate Universe formation and entered a mountain. She fought as she chased after him. Unknowingly, the sky darkened. As dusk rose, the 2 of them were still fighting. Boom! Suddenly, a bolt of lightning fell from the sky. Ding Ruijie sped up and avoided the lightning. Chu Li was overjoyed. He knew that the heaven-deceiving technique had backfired. Ding Ruijie suddenly turned around and walked towards Chu Li, giving him a fright. She was going to drag him down with her to hell with her. He became the one running away and ran toward the valley. Boom! Another bolt of lightning fell from the sky. Ding Ruijie disappeared and appeared behind Chu Li in the next moment. She was so fast that Chu Li could not dodge. Crack! Chu Li felt numb when he heard this sound. He felt his body stiffen and he lost control. This familiar feeling made him understand that he was struck by lightning again. He used all his mystical skills to dispel the lightning energy. The next moment, he appeared in front of Ding Ruijie in a flash. He pressed his palm on her chest and spat out all the inner energy in his body. Bang! Ding Ruijie spat out blood and was sent flying. Chu Li followed closely behind and caught up with him once again. Another palm energy fell. Stop! A shout was heard. A middle-aged man in white suddenly appeared in front of him and faced the palm. Bang! Chu Li felt his palm hit a hard rock. The palm energy rebounded and he was sent flying. He turned in the air and swung both his hands. Tsk tisk. 2 bolts of lightning shot toward Ding Ruijie's throat and forehead. How dare you! The middle-aged man in white snorted and appeared in front of Ding Ruijie. He waved his sleeve and the 2 flying knives were sent flying. Chapter 31:18. He was so close to killing Ding Ruijie, but someone stopped him at the crucial moment. Killing intent erupted from his body like a volcano, and he wished for nothing more than to pounce forward and kill this meddlesome fellow with a single palm strike. But this person's cultivation was deep and not inferior to Ding Ruijie's, and might even be a level higher than Ding Ruijie's, so he might not be able to defeat him. Who are you? Chu Li took a deep breath to suppress his anger and stared coldly at the middle-aged man in white. The man in white said, Zhu Hua from the Prophecy Pavilion. After saying that, he looked up at the gradually condensing thunderclouds in the sky and turned to look at Ding Ruijie, who was on the verge of collapse. He shook his head regretfully and said in a deep voice, No matter who you are, you can't kill Miss Ding. Goodbye. With that, he tugged at Ding Ruijie's sleeve and fluttered away. Chu Li was furious. His body swayed as he stood in front of the 2 men. The thunderclouds formed in the sky and were about to descend. Zhu Huaxian disappeared before Chu Li's eyes and reappeared 100 meters away in the next moment. Like a stream of light, he disappeared into the forest in an instant. Chu Li hurriedly used the omniscient mirror to observe, but he could not find anything. Chu Li was frustrated. If Ding Ruijie escaped, she would definitely look for Sun Mingyue next, and he would be finished. He raised his head to look at the thunderclouds that were slowly dispersing. It was obvious that Zhu Hua had also used the heaven-deceiving technique, which was why he was able to hide Ding Ruijie from his omniscient mirror. However, even if he could not see it, Chu Li still followed closely behind him with his tracking skill. Unfortunately, Zhu Hua's light body technique was powerful and he could travel hundreds of feet in one step without a trace. Even if Chu Li could follow him, he was far behind and could not catch up with the heaven-deceiving script. He stood on top of a mountain and looked at the direction where Ding Ruijie and the others disappeared. His face was gloomy as he thought of a plan. I can't kill Ding Ruijie now, so I can only think of another way. Things don't always go your way, how can everything go your way? Sun Mingyue said. Ding Ruijie said, It's about the Holy Church of Light's luck. Sun Mingyue was stunned. The Holy Church's luck? Ding Ruijie nodded. I accidentally saw the Holy Church's luck. It's not good. Senior Ding, please enlighten me. Sun Mingyue cupped her fists and said, What's wrong with the Sacred Church's fate? From what I can see, the Holy Church of Light's demise is imminent, Ding Ruijie said in a low voice. Sun Mingyue asked, When will it be destroyed? It will be destroyed within 10 years, Ding Ruijie said. Why were they destroyed? Sun Mingyue asked without batting an eyelid. Ding Ruijie said, because of your identity as a successor, if you wish to avoid the fate of the Holy Church of Light's destruction, you must resign from your position and choose someone else to be the saint. So you're saying that I'm a scourge? Sun Mingyue revealed a faint smile, a hint of amusement at the corner of her eyes. Yes. Ding Ruijie nodded slowly and said, forgive me for being blunt, but you and the Holy Church of Light are incompatible. It's not suitable for you to be the Holy Church's saint. It's not good for you and the Holy Church if you're the saint. It's better for the two of you to separate. Interesting. Sun Mingyue's smile widened. She shook her head and said, Senior Ding's divination skills are truly amazing. All right, I understand. If you don't want the Holy Church of Light to perish, you'll have to step down as soon as possible. Ding Ruijie said, that's all I have to say. Farewell. She got up and drifted away. Chapter 31:19. Senior Ding, please wait. Sun Mingyue called out softly. Ding Ruijie paused and slowly turned to look at her. Sun Mingyue said, I see that Senior Ding has something to say. I hope Senior Ding can enlighten me. Ding Ruijie pondered and shook her head. I shouldn't talk about the Holy Church's internal affairs. Senior Ding, please speak your mind. I won't blame you, Sun Mingyue said. Ding Ruijie looked at her deeply and sighed. There's something wrong with the Holy Church's priest. What is it? Sun Mingyue frowned. Ding Ruijie said, there's a Fu dynasty traitor. I think his surname is Fong. Sun Mingyue suppressed her instinctive denial and looked at her thoughtfully. Senior Ding, you can see this? Heavenly prophecy is mysterious and unpredictable. I don't know what you can see. Ding Ruijie said plainly, I'm just telling you what I saw. It's considered a form of friendship between you and Xiao Go. Sun Mingyue gave a fist salute. Thank you, Senior Ding. She felt a little guilty. Liang Ying's death was related to her, and she did not expect Zhao Dai to really kill Liang Ying. Ding Ruijie said, I've said what needs to be said. My worldly wish has been fulfilled. I'll never see you again. She waved her hand and fluttered away, quickly disappearing into the forest. Sun Mingyue frowned and remained silent. Doing pursed her red lips and did not let herself speak. After a while, Sun Mingyue turned around and walked back. Doing only dared to speak when she saw that her expression had relaxed. Saint, she's talking nonsense, right? You can't ignore the words of the Heavenly Prophecy Pavilion's disciple, Sun Mingyue said. Doing scoffed. She said that priest Fong Qingyang is a Fu dynasty traitor. Isn't that nonsense? Sun Mingyue did not comment. Doing said, Guardian Fong has killed many Fu dynasty martial arts masters and has always been hunted by them. I don't believe that he's a Fu dynasty traitor. Sun Mingyue smiled and did not say anything. She did not believe it either. However, the world was unpredictable, and the most unexpected was often the truth. She never doubted Fong Qingyang's loyalty, but people were fickle. She still had to see. However, this matter could not be investigated, or people would be divided. She had a special technique, so she didn't need to investigate. She could find clues with just a few words. Send a message to Protector Fong, Sun Mingyue said. Ask him to come see me. Yes. Doing nodded helplessly. The setting sun dyed the light palace yellow, but it was still bright and clean. Sun Mingyue sized up Fong Qingyang, who was standing below, and said faintly, I met a disciple from the Heaven Mystery Pavilion, Ding Ruijie, who's Liang Ying's master's uncle. She said that you're from the Fu dynasty. Fong Qingyang was dressed in a green robe. His handsome face and tall posture made him look like a jade tree that stood in the wind with a dazzling expression. He couldn't help but be startled when he heard this, and he revealed an expression of disbelief. Then, his handsome face darkened and he said coldly, Saintess, are you suspecting me? The people from the Pavilion of Divination suspect you, Sun Mingwe said indifferently. What do you think I should do? The saint still doesn't believe me. Fang Qingyang's expression was dark, his eyes gleaming as he glared at her. Sun Mingwe said, You were able to become a priest because you've been tested by the Holy Church, so I naturally believe you. That's why I want to ask you in detail, how did you offend the Pavilion of Divination? I have nothing to do with the Pavilion of Divination, Fang Qingyang said in a low voice. He secretly sighed in relief. It was good that the saintess believed him. He had always secretly admired the saintess and helped her wholeheartedly. It would be too sad if she suspected him because of a single sentence. Sun Mingwe said, The Pavilion of Divination wouldn't frame you for no reason. You must have offended them in some way. Could it be because I've killed people from the Fu dynasty? Fang Qingyang said, I've killed many Fu dynasty powerhouses, so it's inevitable that these people have some connection with the Pavilion of Divination. It's hard to tell them apart. Sun Mingwe nodded slowly. It's very likely. Fang Qingyang frowned. Why would the people from the Pavilion of Divination tell you this, Saintess? It seems that the martial arts world of the Fu dynasty is wary of the Holy Church. Sun Mingwe frowned and said slowly, They're starting to suppress the Holy Church. That's troublesome. Fang Qingyang said, Saintess, they won't give up until they get what they want this time. Once the Pavilion of Divination says that the Holy Church will endanger the Li dynasty's imperial court, the hearts of the people. His heart sank at the thought. The Pavilion of Divination's words were too powerful. The lethality of one sentence was equivalent to the power of a dozen grandmasters. Sun Mingwe said, Yes, I guess the Pavilion of Divination won't give up. They want to destroy the Holy Church's morale. How do we fight back? Fang Qingyang said, They can steal the heavenly secrets, so it'll be troublesome if we really go against them. The disciples of the Pavilion of Divination could see the past and the future. If they said that the Holy Church of Light would endanger the Li dynasty in the future, no one would dare to ignore it. Even those who did not believe it would be doubtful. This was the authority of the Pavilion of Divination. Sun Mingwe said, We'll first announce that the Pavilion of Divination is spreading lies to mislead the public, and that the Holy Church of Light does not welcome disciples of the Pavilion of Divination. That's the only way. Fang Qingyang shook his head. They were forced to do so. Once they made such an announcement, it would be tantamount to becoming enemies with the Pavilion of Divination. As an enemy, they would not be fair and would inevitably say something unfavorable to the other party, which could weaken the Pavilion of Divination's prophecy about the Holy Church of Light. However, if they really did so, they would be completely hostile to the Pavilion of Divination. The Pavilion of Divination would definitely make a move. Sun Mingwe said faintly, We'll be enemies sooner or later. Don't think about getting lucky. We're not ready yet. Fang Qingyang sighed. Sun Mingwe said, We'll never be ready. We can act when the time is right. From now on, the responsibilities of the four great protectors will be heavier. You have to buck up and stand up at the critical moment. Yes. Fang Qingyang felt warm and gave a fist salute. Footsteps were heard and Du Ying's voice was heard. Saintess, Ding Ruijia has spoken again. Come in, Sun Mingwe said. Du Ying entered quietly and gave a fist salute to Fang Qingyang. Then, she said, Ding Ruijia said that priest Lu is from the Qiu dynasty. From the Qiu dynasty? Sun Mingwe laughed and said, All right, you can leave. Should I ask priest Lu to come over? No need. Sun Mingwe shook her head. Du Ying curtsied and retreated. Fang Qingyang frowned. Who exactly is this Ding Ruijia? A disciple of the Pavilion of Divination, Sun Mingwe said faintly. Before the two of them could speak, Du Ying came out of the basilica again. Saintess, she said that junior brother Zhao Daif is from the Jing dynasty. Interesting. Sun Mingwe laughed. You don't have to report this to me anymore. Yes. Doing answered crisply and walked away. Go to the Fu dynasty and have a look. Sun Mingyue frowned and said, See what happened to the Pavilion of Divination. Yes. Fang Qingyang nodded slowly. Sun Mingyue said, I feel that there's something strange about this Ding Ruijie. She then thought about what happened to Ding Ruijie and vaguely understood that Ding Ruijie had gone crazy and did not want to live alone. She wanted to cause a ruckus and then go to the outland to accompany her lover. That was why she acted recklessly. Fang Qingyang said, I'll go to the Fu dynasty to investigate. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.